2 days regular meeting of the regular session of the Yuma County Board of Supervisors. We're also sitting as all special taxing districts, and this is the February 21st, 2018 regular meeting. It's 9 a.m. and we'll get going, okay? The first item in the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. We will ask Supervisor Pancracy to lead us on the Pledge of Allegiance this morning.
Please join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Oh, my goodness.
All right, the first item in the agenda is call to the public. Call to the public is held for the public's benefit to allow individuals to address issues within the board's jurisdiction. Board members may not discuss items that are not specifically identified on the agenda. Therefore, pursuant to Arizona Revised Statutes 38-431.01H, action taken as a result of the public comment will be limited to directing staff to study the matter, respond to criticism, or scheduling the matter for further discussion and decision at a future date. Now, if you're going to be speaking on an item that's already on the agenda, and you gave me one of these cards, I'll take it up. If there's anyone here at the time, is there anyone here that wants to speak on an item that isn't in the agenda in this section? If not, then we'll wait until the item. I'm pretty sure, just from the names, that there might be some bicyclists in the audience or something. We'll get to you soon enough. The item next to that item, and we leave call to the public open during the whole meeting so that we always have an opportunity to call upon the public at any particular time. So just don't throw things at us, just point, just raise your hand or something. We go then to the next item, which is presentations, proclamation, and appointments. During this segment of the agenda, board members may discuss presentations and proclamations or may announce appointments to the Yuma County Planning and Zoning Commission and the Yuma County Board of Adjustment. No legal action will be taken on this item. I guess before I go to the Excellence Award, I'd like to ask any of the board members have any appointments or proclamations to make? Well, the proclamation side you can skip. The appointment side, no? Then, okay, Susan, you're next.
Good morning, Chairman Reyes and members of the board. It's always my pleasure to bring you the winners at the nominees and the winner for the Quarterly Safety Excellence Award. We like to recognize deserving employees. Any employee can nominate another county employee for a quarterly or annual award, and the nomination is approved by their agency head or elected officials. The nominees for the quarterly awards are recognized in the U-Count newsletter. They receive a certificate of achievement, a safety challenge coin, and a commemorative safety mug. All nominees are then automatically eligible to be selected for the annual Safety Excellence Award in conjunction with our annual Years of Service and Employee of the Year ceremony. The winner of the Quarterly Safety Excellence Award receives a $100 net cash prize. The annual Safety Award winner receives a $250 net cash prize. I'm pleased to recognize 3 Safety Excellence Award nominees for the second quarter of this fiscal year. They are Jesus Chuy Salazar from Public Works, Isaac Barragan from Public Works, and Lisa Mendez from the Library District. First, I'd like to invite Jesus Salazar to come to the podium to be recognized. Jesus is known by everyone as Chuy, so I'll call him Chuy for the rest of the presentation.
That sounds weird, though. Chuy.
He likes it. That's okay. Chuy is
he has no choice.
Chuy is the waste management lead worker in Public Works. He served in his current position for 5 years and has been with Yuma County for 8 years. The Waste Management Division has 53 roll-off bins ranging from 30 to 50 cubic yards used for waste collection at the transfer sites. These roll-off bins are subject to heavy usage and rough conditions that can result in damage to the bins. This damage exposes employees and the public that utilize the transfer sites to safety hazards and unsanitary conditions. To minimize hazards, Chuy developed and implemented a roll-off bin inspection program and a checklist. Damaged bins are taken out of service until they can be repaired or replaced. Mr. Salazar also has provided training to all of his staff on how to properly inspect roll-off bins and take them out of service to prevent injuries. This is just one example of Chuy's leadership at the waste transfer site. His staff takes pride in keeping the facility clean, orderly, and in good condition, and they've implemented improvements under his leadership. Chuy promotes a safe operation for his staff and for all the public who use his facility. So I wanted to thank Chuy for his service.
Yes,
Next, I'd like to ask Isaac Barragan to join me at the podium to be recognized. Isaac is an Equipment Technician 1 in the Public Works Department. He has served in his current position and has worked for Yuma County for 1 year. Isaac initiated an improvement plan at the main equipment maintenance shop. He asked the shop foreman if they could purchase some lifting tools for the shop. He had identified 2 floor jacks that appeared to be in good condition, but even though they looked good, they were actually faulty and would slip down while attempting to lift a vehicle. Isaac brought this to his supervisor's attention because he was concerned someone might get hurt while using it. If the faulty jacks allowed the raised equipment to unexpectedly lower, it could seriously injure employees working on or near the equipment. Because of Isaac's attention to safety and his courage to speak up, the jacks were replaced, and injuries had been prevented at the small cost of $150 to $250 for each jack. Isaac also spoke with technicians at the TACNA maintenance facility, telling them about the jacks and advised them to check their own floor jacks. Their floor jacks also, although they looked good, were as old and as bad shape as the main shop, and they were also replaced. Isaac seems to always be on the lookout for items that could cause injury to himself or others and reports any concerns. So, thank you, Isaac. Next, I would like to ask Lisa Mendez to join me at the podium to be recognized. Lisa has been the Assistant Director of Libraries for 3 years and has worked for Yuma County for 7 years. As Assistant Director, Lisa has been proactive in working with the County Safety Compliance Officer and the Library Safety Officer to provide training and a safe and secure environment for library staff and the public at all their locations. She always provides safety and security information at staff meetings. During the library's annual Staff Enrichment Day, Lisa makes certain there are those safety and security elements included in the training. She assists in preparing safety and security training material, supports the safety compliance officer's efforts to maintain a safe and secure work environment. Library facilities are open and available to everyone in the community, which can create an environment that at times exposes staff to physical and health hazards. Lisa visits branch libraries at least quarterly to promote safety awareness and to develop safe areas for staff to protect them in case of a lockdown scenario. She leads by example, attends safety and security training, and coaches staff in safe work practices. Lisa has been instrumental in bringing a security perspective to the training provided to staff, including developing tabletop exercises. She also encourages her staff to report and resolve safety issues in their areas. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
So as always, it's exciting to share these nominations with you and remind you that all of our nominees are eligible for the annual Safety Excellence Award. So now I want to announce the Safety Excellence Award recipient for the second quarter, and that would be Mr. Chuy Salazar.
Sure. Yeah.
For your recognition.
Something from Star Wars, eh? Chewbacca. Chewbacca. Come on, Chewie.
Yeah, Tony, one
Thank you. En el medio, eh? We're going to take that check back as soon as we can.
Payroll.
It's probably a payroll advance. Well, it wasn't heavy. The two of them, Chewy moved. I could tell. I'm trying to get the wallet off his pocket back there. Get moving. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I was going to grab her arm.
Yeah. I can't believe I started the pledge with the wrong.
Yeah, girl.
All right.
Used to teach
That
that.
was too exciting for you, Susan. We're going to have to do something about that.
That is.
Okay, the next item in the agenda is a presentation by Julie Angel, President Angel, huh? President, CEO of Greater Yuma County Corporation, providing an update on the corporation's activity. I created that one.
Never been accused of that before.
Don't take it too, literally.
Chairman Reyes, board members, it is always an honor and a privilege to be able to present to you the progress of the Greater Yuma Economic Development Corporation. And before I start today, I would like to apologize because I do use acronyms without even realizing I'm using acronyms. So I want to explain a couple of them first so that I can not have to stop in midstream. But I use the word or the acronym BRE, and that stands for Business Retention Expansion, and then survey will follow that. So BRE survey is something we conduct on an annual basis. Another one that I use a lot is WIA, and that's Yuma International Airport. So if I refer to WIA, I'm talking about Yuma International Airport. And then GYDC, you all know what that is, but I do use that one a lot too. So what you see in front of you, this is the 6 pillars for economic success that the Board of Directors at Greater Yuma Economic Development adopted several years ago, actually, and we are in a 5-year strategic plan that was built on these pillars, and we're in year 3 of that plan. I'm going to talk about each pillar and why these pillars are so important. So the promotion of educational excellence. Yuma is often forgotten at the state capitol, and so we now have a voice through the Yuma Education Advisory Council. This is a kind of a breakoff from Expect More Arizona. I sit on that board with several leaders from this community, and we are the voice for education at the Capitol. When it comes to more shifts or unfunded mandates, we're going to be there championing and asking that that not happen. And we're also lobbying, or not lobbying, but we're also championing the salary increases and things like that that will help with the retention of teachers, because the turnover in teachers is so disruptive to students, and it does affect their long-term education goals. Then Greg Levan sits on the JTED, the Joint Technological Education District Steering Committee. And because of our BRE surveys, we are taking things that have been shared with us from industry straight to that JTED council. And we're asking them, can you meet this need? Can we start this pipeline at the high school level so that when these kids maybe get an associate's degree or certifications, they can go right into the workforce? And JTED has been incredibly responsive to those, and Greg is championing that effort. Another program that we partner with the Chamber of Commerce is Summer Works, and Karima Hayer in my office is the one who's taken the lead on Summer Works, and I'm going to explain Summer Works a little bit more as we go on. The second pillar is competitiveness, and GYDC is hyper vigilant in where we stand against the competing regions that we're up against. We contract with a third-party firm that has the software. They have all the tax rates, they have land costs, they have construction costs built into their program, and they put us against the cities we're competing against. And I'm very happy to report Yuma is always very favorable in those. As a matter of fact, we're doing one right now on a project that we're working on, and Yuma's coming back very positive. So we use this third party. That lends the credibility that the companies need, knowing that it's not us manipulating numbers. This is a company that is paid to do this, and so we're coming back. But we use this regularly to see how we compete. The business retention surveys are incredibly important to our competitiveness. We learn so much from the companies who are working in Yuma County. In our last survey in 2017, we interviewed 32 manufacturing companies in Yuma County. 59% are growing. That's huge. That is huge. That is so different from 4 years ago. And it's really different from 7 years ago when things were really, really upside down. So they tell us the reasons why they're expanding. And those reasons automatically go into our pitch, our marketing campaign when we're trying to attract new companies. We share their experiences with these new companies because it's been such a positive experience for them to grow in this region. So they are critical to our competitiveness as well. We've also learned through our surveys the importance of supplier networks. Because we have a target on food production and food processing as one of our key sectors that we're targeting, we've learned that the supply chain here is rich. It's incredibly rich. And that also has found its way into our marketing materials. The fact that when they come here, there are established chains of everything, whether it be logistics, supplies, employees, it's all right here at their fingertips. So those BRE surveys are critical to our competitiveness as well. So moving to the next pillar, which is, let me find my little, there. It is high wage, high skill job creation. And there are 3 sectors that we focus on for that high wage, high skill job creation. And that is aerospace, manufacturing, and food production. In aerospace, I'm very happy to say we partnered with the Visitors Bureau and the Chamber of Commerce, and we held our first ever familiarization tour for a large industry sector, which is defense. The Mesa Industry and Defense Council came with their mayor, actually the mayor of Mesa. They have a large sector of defense contractors at the airport in Mesa, and they have a consortium. And in that, they are taking too many of their tests outside of the state. We brought them to Yuma Proving Ground. They spent the day at Yuma Proving Ground. They learned of the resources and the capacity and the skill sets that exist at Yuma Proving Ground, and they were blown away. Every one of them committed to start bringing testing here to Yuma. The next day we had them in town, we took them to Yuma International, WIA, and they toured the Joe Foss hangar, they toured the assets there, they learned about Raleigh Airfield, they got to meet with Jacobs and NASA, and they learned the relationship that Jacobs and NASA has with YPG, and they were so excited about the opportunities that exist. Now that could not have been done without my partners. The Visitors Bureau got all the buses. They secured the event site for our dinner the night that they were on Tuesday night. The chamber helped pay for some of the dinner. Everybody came to the table to make this massive coordination event happen. And it was massive because we're talking about defense contractors who are in the top 10 in the nation, and they were here. So we had a very successful trip. I'm very excited to say our YPG folks are going to Mesa now, and they're going to tour Orbital. They're going to tour Boeing. They're going to tour Raytheon. And they're going to see what they're doing. And it's our test directors that are going. And so they'll be able to come back, create whatever's necessary to make their test successful. So it was a tremendous win for all of us. And we're very excited about our trip there. And we're going to see some things happening in aerospace and defense. And I'm really confident that it's also going to lead to some lease space for the airport.
All right.
So moving on to food. Very happy to say McCormick and Gourmet Garden, who are now one company, have hired 3 of the University of Arizona's grad students here in Yuma, and they are performing all of the essential oil testing out at the station where Martin works. And they will, once Gourmet has set up shop, they will integrate right into their process. And so Gourmet has already hired 3 people, and there will be more. The announcement is still forthcoming. They are now reevaluating whether it's going to be a greenfield or they're going to repurpose a building. I should have some information to report in March. The project is still moving forward, and the best news is they've already got people on the ground, and these young girls will be going to Australia. All expenses paid. So you can't beat something like that.
No.
When you get an employer that is willing to train you on site. That's an exciting thing. So we will be scheduling. I'm going to move to manufacturing. We have MPW will be under construction. They're working out all of their site plans and reviews. LRC Coil finished their building. They relocated out of California into Yuma County. We also have Allside, who continues to expand annually. They are growing at an enormous pace, and they have outgrown their space. They are probably going to have to either build a new building or have 2 locations because they can't keep up with the site they have, which is great news. That is great news. And then Insultech was operating here in Yuma, and they have now built a new facility and moved all their operations out of California into Yuma as well. So Insultech grew. And we're excited. And then Martech Medical, which I think, I know, Russell, you were at our ribbon cutting for Martech Medical. They are a medical device manufacturer who are expanding, and they are considering this area for that expansion. So we're very excited about the potential to see them grow within the first year of being here. On March 22nd, we will be meeting with one of our targeted site selectors. We were going to go to California to meet with them, and he said, no, I'm coming to Yuma on March 22nd to tour the Allmark building. Why don't you tour the Allmark building with me, and then let's sit down and talk. So it's going to save us money because we won't have to travel to them. He's going to come to us. And this gentleman actually is in the finance realm, but he only finances food production companies. So we are making him very aware of the success of Allmark, who is now boots on the ground in Yuma, and how can we grow their presence in Yuma So we're excited about this opportunity, but we're going to also target site selectors who are only in the food industry. And so Greg and I will be traveling to Chicago in April, Dallas in April, Cleveland in May, and possibly New York. We'll see how it goes, because in Chicago we have over 10 site selectors to meet with there. And the goal of this is, one, to make them aware of Yuma, and two, we want to identify the ones who make the most sense for this region, and then replicate our familiarization tour that we did with aerospace and defense and have it be a food familiarization tour. And that will be next fiscal year, but we will be selecting which site selectors from these visits that we want to pay to bring here and have them really immersion into our food production opportunities here. So we're excited about that. Let's see, pillar 4. Further, our resource development is all done with our BRE program. The intelligence needed for growing this region is right at our fingertips with our existing industries. We also will be doing some new messaging on these site selection tours. We're partnering with Spectrum. They've got the address of each site selector, and they're going to inundate them with our information a week before, the week of, that we're there. They're stalking them, so to speak. It's incredible what they can do when they have an address and they know who they're targeting. They can directly target that person. So we're using those resources to help us get in front of them so that when we walk in the door, they're not totally surprised by us. And then I have at each of your desks a advertisement that we partnered, and that was for our Forefront ED and Martech Medical. Martech Medical has a location in both Mexicali and in Yuma. Beyond Borders is a bi-national publication. It is in both English and Spanish. Every article is in both languages. Their subscribers are in Mexicali, Tijuana, San Diego, Los Angeles, all the way up to Sacramento. They have a really impressive subscriber list. And so we decided to try it, and it's incredible. The cost was very affordable, and they gave us November as the whole inside spread was about Martech and GYDC. And again, we're letting Martech tell our story. We're letting them convince other companies that this is where they need to be. Then our sense of place. One of the things that we learned in our BRE survey is how important education is to the sustainability of all industry. In education, 100% of the companies we interviewed believe that Yuma needs a 4-year university, that it is critical to their future success and the community's future success. They all support it. They will all be on board. As a matter of fact, we have more and more companies coming forward saying, what do you need for training? What do you need? What can I donate for equipment so that these kids can start learning what we're doing? Because technology is changing at a pace that is incredibly hard to keep up with. So most recently, we've partnered with Russ Jones, R.L. Jones, and he's working with Kevin Imes at JTED, and they are creating a program at his new facility in San Luis. So it'll be for San Luis High School students. They will be learning about logistics, but they will also be learning about international clearing, customs clearing, and things. You know, this is something that is going to be very unique to our region because not many students will have this opportunity, but they will have experience in international business as a high schooler. So we're so grateful to Russ Jones. They are opening their doors. They're going to make a class there in their facility, and we're seeing more and more of that. We're seeing the industry get involved, but the need for the higher education is paramount, and we're hearing it loud and clear from our employers, tracks especially. They need that continuing education because how fast technology is changing. So we're really behind that. That's our pillar number 1 is educational excellence in a 4-year university. I'm not saying we don't have 4-year opportunities here, we do. We need the presence of a 4-year university because that's going to attract investment into the region. If you look at what Dr. Crow has done, it took him 10 years to get where he's at today. But look what he's accomplished. We can do the same. It's not going to happen overnight, but we can do it. So also moving on to further sense of place, Summer Works in Yuma is a program that we partnered with the Chamber of Commerce. Karima Hayer is leading that program. That is for teachers who have the summer off and sometimes go back to Michigan or go back to Iowa, wherever they're from, and they decide, you know what, I'm not going to go back. I'm not going to go back to Yuma. So we're trying to find a way to keep those teachers here, get them engaged in the community, and have them stay through the summer. Because I found myself when I moved here, it was a year before I could stand the heat and understand this climate. We think if we can keep them here, they're going to fall in love with it just like everyone else does. So employers in Yuma have agreed to hire teachers to do those projects that had to be put off during our busy season. Those teachers will be working in the summer. They don't have to provide them with benefits. They don't have to provide them with workman's comp. All they have to do is pay them. And the teachers are very skilled, they're dependable, and they're a great employer. So we have several employers who have stepped up and done that. And I'd like to tell the story because APS had such a wonderful experience doing this. APS hired a teacher from Somerton. They had an issue. They brought him in. He was just listening, and he had this out-of-the-box idea, and it fixed their situation. And it was like, sometimes we get so far in the weeds, we don't even see it. And when an outsider comes in and they are looking at it from a completely open mind, they can solve a problem that we couldn't. And so they love this concept of using the teachers. So that is helping with our sense of
Question. Do the teachers have to sign something that says that they won't go into that business? Because we lose teachers that way.
No, we have a verbal understanding about that. When we're promoting this program, we say this is a temporary job.
Oh, good.
And our employers know that too. Our employers have said we will not cherry pick from this. We won't, because we're really looking for that summer help. GM is another example. They need drivers all summer long because that's when their heaviest testing is during the hot months. I know several teachers who've done it and they love it. It's fun. It's a fun thing to do. It's a drive out and a drive back, but it's still fun to do. So there is this verbal, there's nothing in writing though, Lynn, but there is a verbal commitment that the cherry picking won't happen.
Thank you.
Yes.
Julie, just before you move on
Yes.
with
I'm
that
sorry,
part
Tony,
of the
but
presentation, you mentioned workman's comp as if it was one of those things that an employer chooses to give or not give an employee. Are you sure? Or did you mean worker benefits?
Worker benefits.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Sorry.
Good, because workman's comp is the first,
automatic.
yeah, it's automatic. I mean,
It's automatic.
You wouldn't have them driving around without workman's comp.
Yes, and you're absolutely right. My apologies. What
No,
I
that's
did
fine.
mean to say was, the regular benefits that go with
worker
taking
benefits.
someone on full time, and they don't have to do that. But what they do get is that skill and that maturity because they are already in the workforce. And then again, our BRE helps with our sense of place. Our BRE is how we continue to improve this community. But I can't say enough, a downtown campus would definitely have a holistic impact on sense of place. And the last pillar is collaboration. And the Sun Network is also something we partnered with our friends at the Chamber, and that is the Southwest United Network. And what we have done is we have decided we have to champion our local governments. They are often villainized by things that are happening that are beyond your control at the state level. You are getting sweeps all the time from your funds that are to keep your infrastructure up to date. You're having unfunded mandates pushed on you, and we need that to stop. The Sun is that voice. The Sun is going to go and represent our local jurisdictions and say, look, this has to stop. We took it to the next step. John took it to the Arizona Chamber. I have taken it to the Arizona Association of Economic Development. They have both adopted this as a critical issue, and it has to stop. So in reviewing AAAD's legislative priorities this year, the #1 priority was eliminating sweeps and unfunded mandate. And I'm very proud to say I do think that really did start here with the Sun Network. So we're working on this collaboration and how can we continue to have a partnership with our jurisdictions and work in harmony, for lack of a better word, with each other so we can continue to grow this economy and make Yuma all it can be. That concludes my presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, are there any questions from the board? Julie, thank you. Thank you very much.
Very
and thank
much.
you for keeping us
Thank you.
updated. And congratulations on being mentioned so many times lately, everywhere.
Oh, thank you.
One of the comment, Julie, most people don't know how well GYEDC has done in positioning itself as an organization that is well organized and the site selectors like and appreciate meeting with and working with. So That doesn't happen by accident. Thank you for your leadership in that.
Yes.
Great team.
And
My board. Thank my board. Martin
And
Andrews.
I would be remiss if I didn't mention how well you blend in with the Arizona-Mexico Commission and how much you highlighted throughout the process. Because, you certainly have become a very, critical, not for a better word, but part of that commission. And it really helps. It keeps Yuma, up front.
And that's so important. If we're not there, we are forgotten. We know that, so we have to be there.
So practice your Spanish.
No kidding. I tell Karime, don't speak to me in
When you
anything
go
but
to the
Spanish.
gym, get some headphones.
There you go. All
This is
right.
time.
Thank you all very much. It's a privilege to be here. Thank you.
Just wear those little earbuds.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you. The next item in the agenda is item number 3, presentation of the county line by Yuma 77, the Yuma County Government Channel. We're gonna subject the mayor of Yuma to all this stuff.
The mayor's job here.
Your Board of Supervisors appoints a new member to the House of Representatives. It's an annual event that makes your kids happy to be healthy. And get ready, Foothills, bike lanes are almost ready. These stories and more, this is your County Line. If you haven't been keeping up with your county government this last week, a historic meeting was recently held by your Board of Supervisors. The Yuma County Board of Supervisors met to interview 3 candidates to be the Legislative District 13 representative at the Arizona Capitol. With a packed galley in the boardroom and many people watching on Facebook Live, the Board of Supervisors had the tough decision to fill the vacated spot. In the end, they chose a longtime member of the Yuma County family, Tim Dunn, who is also a farmer with strong ties to the Arizona Farm Bureau.
Well, to me, it's humbling and it's an honor to be able to represent Yuma County and go forward. I'm used to doing that as far as representing rural issues and ag issues and trying to educate, local and state and nationally. So, but it's important now that we can actually have the vote that can actually make a difference. And so I think it's important to be able to help the whole legislature with that rural business, needs and understanding of those needs and be able to articulate it to the other legislators.
Shortly after our interview, Representative Dunn was off to Phoenix to be sworn in and take his seat. We wish him well as he represents Yuma County at the legislature. Teaching kids about healthy lifestyles can be a daunting task, but for over a decade, our Yuma County Health District has been using a program with 3rd graders that has them hungry for more. Our nutrition experts are taking area 3rd graders through the entire body by walking them the entire way. Set up at the Yuma Civic and Convention Center, these children get the interactive experience of strolling through an enormous mouth and visiting a variety of body parts, all in the name of good health.
We partner with these schools throughout the year, bringing the nutrition education lessons into the classroom. This event gives them a chance to learn a lot of those same messages, but it's in a different environment. It's fun, it's more relaxed. They get to meet those costume characters. So it gets them out of the classroom. They're still learning, some valuable information, but done in a very fun, interactive style.
Each year, the popular Body Walk program is completely booked. Nearly 1,200 area students participate. Plans are already underway for next year's Body Walk. Budget season is a tedious process, and recently the Board of Supervisors sat down with all county departments to start laying the groundwork for the upcoming budget season. During the retreat, the board, elected officials, and department heads heard a number of presentations focusing on long-range financial planning, budget forecasts, and employee benefits and pay. For your county supervisors, these retreats are an important part of knowing department needs and seeing how things fit into the big picture when it comes to making the tough decisions on the upcoming budget year. With the retreat over, county officials are now setting their sights on the upcoming budget meetings that will begin in May. Be sure to tune in to Yuma 77. We'll be airing all budget meetings in their entirety. We're always adjusting to change in county government, a lot of times to keep up with technology. Our elections office knows this all too well. It wasn't too long ago, voters had to visit the office for everything. Well, as we take a closer look, you'll see it's all about convenience now.
Yuma County Election Services administers, prepares, conducts, and tallies federal, state, and county elections in accordance with Arizona revised statutes. Throughout the year, we prepare getting ready for the elections that are on the 4 consolidated dates of the year. And as we're doing this, we recruit poll workers, we make sure the polling places are in compliance, and we go out and see if we can find additional resources that we can incorporate or use. We also do preparing the candidate packets. A lot of this information you will find on our website for candidate packets and election dates. Also, if you're interested in being a poll worker, we have an application that you can complete online and it gets submitted to us. The Recorder's Office and elections works hand in hand. The Recorder's Office has all the voter registration lists. They handle all the early voting, and then after they have gone through the verification process with the recorder, then those are sent to our office to be tallied. Yuma County has vote centers, so the voters are allowed to go to any vote center on election day. There's not a specific one that they're assigned to. The department also provides services, issuing, accepting, and maintaining candidate, initiative, referendum, and recall filings and campaign committee financial reports, and is responsible for establishing election precinct boundaries.
And don't forget, there's a lot you can do on our website without having to call the elections office. Just visit yumacountyaz.gov and locate the elections pages under Government.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth and this is your HealthWatch. The Yuma County Public Health Services District, in collaboration with Safe Kids Yuma, will be hosting a special series of trainings in March. These trainings will be held for first responders and families with children living with developmental and intellectual disabilities. The goal of these trainings is to build bridges and minimize the risk injury of escalation for this vulnerable population. The first training, Be Safe, is a community skill building training whose intended audience is for individuals with developmental or intellectual disabilities who are accompanied by their parents or caregivers. The second training, EMS, the autism community, will equip EMS personnel with information about autism spectrum disorders. The third training, Navigating with Knowledge, will equip law enforcement officials with relevant information necessary to interact more efficiently with individuals diagnosed with disorders. The first session will be held in English on Tuesday, March the 13th, and a Spanish session will be on Wednesday, March the 14th. Concluding the 3 trainings, participants will be provided the opportunity to interact in a safe environment and practice what they have learned during the community safety event. For further information, please contact Yuma County Public Health Services District at 928-317-4580. This is all for now. Until next time, stay healthy, Yuma.
As we've been covering for you over the last year, something new for the foothills is nearly finished. Your county government has been working closely with area cyclists to designate bike routes in different parts of the county. 2 bike routes have been targeted in the foothills, and our Public Works Department has already begun installing the posts that will hold the signage, calling attention to bike routes for drivers.
The bike route signage should notify motorists that this is a designated bike route, so to expect bicycles on the road. And it also provides a designated route for bicyclists for both recreation purposes and to get from one destination to another.
The route features a loop in the foothills, south of Interstate 8, that extends along Foothills Boulevard, East County 14th Street, South Avenue 15E, and East-South Frontage Road. Stay tuned, we'll be bringing you updates about this new feature for cyclists as we get closer to opening the routes. Just this year, your county government started a new program recognizing employees for their safety excellence. Each quarter, a winner is chosen for their safety practices. The final winner for 2017 is Jesus Chuy Salazar from our Public Works Department. Mr. Salazar is being recognized for his observance of the roll-off bins used to collect and dispose solid waste. 53 bins that can hold up to 30 to 50 cubic yards of waste are used heavily nearly every day of the year. Mr. Salazar created an inspection program. He has provided training to all employees to properly inspect the bins and determine when they should be taken out of service. It was only a matter of time before someone could have been seriously injured. But thanks to Mr. Salazar's can-do attitude, the public and our employees are now in a safer environment. Congratulations, and thank you for your hard work and dedication. We'd like to thank you for joining us for this County Line. If you'd like to watch past episodes, log on to yumacountyaz.gov/VOD. We'll see you next time.
Well, and those updates are free of charge, so, don't miss them. Before we leave the presentations and proclamations, we would like to, convey our condolences to Mr. Pat Headington. He lost his father, and, we were told that, and so we wanted to let you know, Pat, that all of us here feel for you. All right. The next item in the agenda is the consent calendar. The following items are listed under the consent agenda, and they will be considered as a group and acted upon by one motion with no separate discussion unless a board member so requests. In that event, the item will be removed from the consent calendar for separate discussion and action. There are items 1 through 13, I think. Yes. Are there any items to be pulled from any of the board members? If not, then I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Been motion and second to approve the consent calendar as presented. Any discussion? No? All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? This is so anticlimactic for those of you who have been waiting here for a long time to get into it, but it was accomplished. So we move on then to the discussion and action items, in which the board will open each of the following items separately for discussion and action. The first item is development services, to authorize the Director of Development Services to request proposals for permit management and electronic review, software vendors, and preparation of replacing development services permitting software next year.
Good morning,
Sellers.
Chairman Reyes, members of the board.
Morning.
Craig Sellers, Director of Development Services. Appreciate having the opportunity today to discuss some of the things we've done to develop, where we want to go with the permit software, and seek from you approval to go out for an RFP for this. Where I started with our approach to new software was, if you remember, when I started as director, I had one-on-one meetings with developers, applicants, contractors, and had forums with different groups within the community to ask them what we could be doing better as a department to help them and their businesses to increase development and improve our processes for them. And the things that they talked about for us was access was first. Having more access to the information as it's going through the permitting process, the regulations that we're using to as underlying our processes, so that they can understand what's happening with their applications and plan better within their decision making for their businesses. And this goes into alignment. From the discussions, I understood that there's timing element with when they are doing a development. So when they start a development, they are dealing with financial commitments that they've made and have timing elements that they need to relate to. If we can have our processes move smoothly and predictably, it allows them to make better business decisions. And so we want to work with that, and feel the software changes will help with that. Also, being able to partner with them, not in the sense of we're a business partner, but recognizing that the county benefits from planned logical development that's going on, and allows us to work with one another on economic development and so forth. Electronic permitting was a big request from them. Excuse me. A number of our applicants are not located in Yuma. Solar companies are coming in from out of town. If they're able to send us information electronically and have it entered directly into the system, they have the ability to get it. And then if what we don't have right now is the ability to send them the permits out in electronic form. And that was streamline their processes because they can just track when they go in and out of the system. Over the years, we have worked to automate a number of our processes. Some of the challenges we're having with Permits Plus is what we're requiring it to do and keep track of. But as we regiment our processes with the automation, they wanted to make sure that we weren't losing the personal touch that and the relationships that we've had with the development community in the past. And so we're being mindful of that and hoping that through this process, we'll keep that in mind. And when somebody wants to come in and sit down and discuss their project, we will maintain that commitment to do that. And then on a number of times we've had, trust us. And for the most part, our development community is trustworthy, and we want to develop the relationship to where we have a greater commitment to one another through that process. Starting in with what we need from our software. Through the enterprise risk management scrub process, we've identified that there's more departments than just development services that need access to the software we're providing. We need efficiency and functional software. It's the efficiency that's going to give us the cost savings and the time savings within our system. It allows us to use our personnel for meeting with people and doing a greater load than what they're currently doing. The assessor has the ability, if they can get in and see their permit files, to pull the files that we've used to provide the permit and check the information when they're assessing the value of that improvement and getting it on the tax rolls. Health department does inspections for restaurants, care centers, child care, and a variety of other locations. If they had access to our software, they'd have the ability to track those inspections and do a better job of keeping that going. And ITS needs a reliable software. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Craig, going back to the assessor, is that currently a paper process? How's the assessor? So it's a paper process at this time, right?
We do have scanned images of our software, but there's a longer delay in the process. We don't have an electronic copy of the plans until we enter it into our long-term records.
Okay, then that's how they're currently accessing it? Right. Okay, and this would improve that efficiency by feeding that directly to them. Thank you.
Requirements and limitation. A number of the changes that we made to Permits Plus, we were wanting to implement for the benefit of the development community. It became mandatory when Senate Bill 1598, the Local Government Regulatory Bill of Rights, was passed in 2011. This is the regulation that requires us to have deadlines and maintain those deadlines within the system. With that, we developed a process where instead of having individual permits tracked within our system, we created overall projects for a development. And if there's a floodplain use permit, an encroachment permit, building permit, there's an overriding file that keeps track of what's happening on all of those permits. It allows us to track our personnel performance and gives us that benefit. The newer softwares have a number of components that improve the data. Permits Plus, our current software, is static. Until you turn on the computer, it doesn't recognize that there's been any change in time. The newer softwares keep track of that or have the ability to inform us when deadlines are coming due and so forth. So we have some functionality there that will improve with those. We have to maintain that connection with the laws so that we can remain compliant. Contractually, we have some limitations in that we have a contract with Acela, who is the producer of the software, and we have contracts with Microsoft through the operating systems that we have. Acela, because Permits Plus is now 20 years old, doesn't want to regenerate Permits Plus so it'll operate safely in the next edition of Windows. Microsoft will no longer support the current version of software that we need is for Windows 7 after 2020. So we are coming to a quick end in about 2 years where we will no longer have a compliant software that we can operate. And then operational limits, like I've discussed, we have limitations on what it will do. Our current system is not integrated into GIS, which would also improve the communication with the assessor and the other departments. It will also help the public with those components.
You better move it, Greg. You're starting to drive the supervisors away.
Oh.
Up your presentation.
That's right. So what I wanted to do next is give you an overview of the permit activity that we're doing. Over the last 20 years, we looked at residential, commercial, PEM as plumbing, electrical, mechanical permits. Mm-hmm. These commonly relate to renovations that are occurring on homes, mobile homes, encroachment, and other permits. The other permits are often plan reviews and septic system transfers. When somebody transfers ownership of a property that has a septic tank, we process a transfer of those. And so as you can see, our other permits in our plumbing, electrical, mechanical are growing significantly in the last 4 to 5 years. Everything else is staying flat over that same time period. Unfortunately, it's the residential, commercial, manufactured homes that generate tax base, because those are the real estate that's occurring. And having those stay flat doesn't help us with tax base, but we still have a greater demand because we still have an increase in the permits that are occurring. As we look at employees by the function that's done, we have our employees that do permitting. This is our permit techs, a few of our engineers, a few of our planners. The planning that are recognized here are the planners that are doing planning work and not permitting. And the engineers are the engineers that are doing engineering and flood control outside of permitting as well. And so as you can see, our permit people have dropped over the years, and we have seen a drop off in the number of permitting, but as we look at it, the number of permits is per employee is staying quite pretty consistent over that time. Annual maintenance cost. Each year we pay to utilize Permits Plus and pay for their services if we have any questions or problems with the software. In 2011, we were paying approximately $68,000. This year, we're paying $104,000. In the future, they've been suggesting that they're going to go to an hourly rate. for those services instead of outright contract. So we went through and looked at a couple of different options on what we could do. Permits plus, we looked at if we just maintained a 2% increase in maintenance costs and the impact that it's having on staff. We projected out that a baseline cost for that is about $3.5 million. The next thing we looked at is, well, what if we just did away with software? And we went back to using Excel and Word documents to track what we're doing and just what would the impact be to staff costs, additional staff time that we would need. We would need a minimum of 2 additional people to offset even what Permits Plus is doing for us at this point in time. With that, because it's a more manual process, we would expect there to be a higher level of errors within the process. Permit management with GIS referencing and electronic permitting, this is what we're recommending because it gives us the greatest flexibility and reduces our errors, because if we use GIS referencing, we can click on the parcel and the information that's already embedded in that can be moved over to the permitting software, eliminating, minimizing the errors with that, and ties the databases within that.
Would this tie the, excuse me, Mr. Chair?
Yes, Supervisor.
Would this tie in with the assessor's office as well?
It wouldn't be the same database because we think that there's a need at this point to have 2 separate databases. But right now, GIS receives a copy of the assessor's data every 1 to 2 days.
Okay.
So we would have the very current data that we're using and would give that continuity of the data. Within this, we're estimating that we would save approximately $800,000 over 11 years. And I know 11 years is an odd number to use. The software is good for 10 years, and I want to include the cost for replacement of software on the 11th year, so we're not back at the same place we are now of having software that is just completely run out its life and not having a dollar amount identified for what it's going to cost to replace it after that.
So the savings of 800, Mr. Chair, sorry.
Sure, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
The savings of $800,
Look, let's save us
800,000.
time. Just ask the question.
Okay, the savings of 800 also includes how much it would cost or predicted to cost to incorporate a new program.
Yes, it does.
That's what. Yeah.
And there's 2 major places where we have savings in cost. One is the maintenance cost. What our current vendor quoted us a year ago for maintenance costs was about $40,000 less than what it would be for our current software. The other component of that is the personnel costs by saving 2 individuals that we would, or
Need to hire.
right, it's 1 less person we need to hire to go on with the new. So that gives us that $80,000. $80,000 a year, I'm sorry.
Oh, got it, okay.
Over
10 years, got it, okay.
And then we have a number of varieties. One is in-house. And as we discussed before, we buy the software. It resides at our servers. We put the database in our servers and we call them for help. And we make adjustments to the software as we want. The hosted, our database and software is housed by the vendor, and they provide a service directly because they're working with the software on their servers. Then you have subscription, whereas every time that there's an upgrade of the system, we just get the newest version and we're continually up to date on the process. So there's benefits for each one of these. what specific value that each vendor can provide us with, we don't know because we haven't met with everyone and we haven't got a price associated with those services. And that's why we want to go out with the RFP at this point, is so that we have the ability to come in and say, this vendor will provide us these services at this fee. This one we don't want to go with because their price structure doesn't work with what we want to do with the software, or they're not providing us with the full range of services we want. And then just for comparison, I ran the difference between this one with electronic permitting and this one without. It's a fairly minor cost difference, and so based off that, we're recommending just moving forward with the electronic review at this point. So I think we've pretty well gone over everything on the summary. Our goals is to meet the things that the public's asked us to do, but within the county, we're also looking at seeing what we can do on the enterprise level and find solutions to help not just our department, but other departments as well. And then our next steps are going to be complete the RFP, get that advertised, and bring back to you a review of those RFPs and a recommendation from staff for recommended alternative. So at this point, we're just asking for authorization to proceed with the RFP.
Okay. Any other questions from the supervisors? Thank you, Craig.
Thank you.
Now, I guess we need
a motion.
Yeah, motion to proceed.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move that we authorize Director of Development Services to request proposals from permit management and electronic review software vendors in preparation of replacing development services, permitting software next fiscal year.
I second that.
A motion and second. Any discussion from any of the board members? No discussion. All those in favor of that motion signify by stating aye.
Aye. Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Craig.
Thank you, Craig.
Yes.
The next item is from Development Services. It's planning and zoning, and it's a presentation of a plan and schedule to address planning cases and schedules for development. Now, who's taking that on? Is that, or was that covered? Didn't even give him a chance to sit, huh? He shouldn't have left.
Pop right back up.
Yeah. I think. Come on, Maggie. I think you know.
Good morning, Craig Sellers again. Last fall, we were asked to come back to you with a plan of how to address the outstanding planning cases with schedules for development. And at this point, there are approximately 35 outstanding cases that we're working with. Over the course of the next 6 months, we're planning on bringing approximately 3 cases per meeting to take action on them. Staff at this point is planning to recommend reversion on all of these cases. This will allow the zoning to go back to where it was and removes the requirements from the properties to do the improvements. There's not they will lose the zoning, but the condition will be out of the way at that point. This will place some of the parcels in non-conformance because the size may be smaller than the allowable zoning. And with that said, I'd like to give you a little bit of history of why do we do schedules for development. And we do them because they provide an opportunity for a developer to reduce the risk of their planned development. And over the last 20 years, we've identified that there's approximately 500 cases that have had schedules for development. So over 20 years, if we have 500 cases and we have 35 of them that have a problem, we're dealing with this process that works fairly efficiently. And so we would hate to have the process just be abandoned. There may be a need to have a little bit more discretion on the use of them, but there are still going to be cases where it's in our interest to keep using schedules for development. Another option that we have is if we feel that there may be concern about the improvements being made is to use performance conditions. And the difference between a performance condition is when the zoning actually vests. With a schedule for development, the zoning vests once it comes to the board and it vests up front. So the land is rezoned and then they have a number of years to maintain that or to perform the conditions that are associated with the zoning. A performance condition is the opposite. Once you complete all of these items, your zoning will go into effect. So it's a before or after decision that would be being made with that.
And before you go on, and I think it's important to point out that the reason we're looking at this is because of the instances where people are selling the property before they perform the schedule for development, you know, and they basically look like their own property, but there's still some things that need to be done on the schedule for development for that zoning to actually be proper. Correct. So what we're trying to do here is avoid that, avoid having the zoning be recorded before the performance conditions are met or before the conditions are met.
Correct. Okay. And that's where the discretion would come in, as at the beginning, if there's concern about whether the conditions would be able to be met, we may want to recommend a performance condition instead of a schedule for development in those cases.
Well, I think they're the same. It's just how we do them and when they get applied that matters to us now. I mean, I don't really think it matters what we call them. It's just that they don't happen to be situations where an individual, again, can claim something, you know, some type of zoning or some type of land change that really he shouldn't, or they shouldn't, because they haven't really met the conditions. So, Mr. Chairman, go ahead, Supervisor McLeod.
I think because we've got the lot split program now, I think we've resolved the issue, right? I mean, no matter which way we did it, I think that issue is resolved, is it not? Because you can't split the lots until you've done the schedule for development, right?
Maggie.
Yeah, but I think it's a marketing of them. It's the.
Mr. Chairman, Maggie Castro, Planning and Zoning Director. The land division process would not prevent somebody from selling the property prior to the schedule for development being met. They would have to record. They would have to record deficiencies as part of the approval of the land division permit, but they could still sell the property.
Are those then recorded on the deed so that a title company would pick up on that?
Mr. Chair, yes, those deficiencies would be recorded on the land division permit and the survey that is completed as part of that process.
But it's recorded with the deed, with the recorder.
Yes.
But that's assuming people do that. But there's a lot of people who do their own transactions without using a title company, and then we end up with these people who have done their own transactions, and then, you know, they're not recorded, but we end up with the same problem. It's just people, I know it's a buyer beware type situation, but it's very difficult to tell someone after they've done it because they assume that the county went through this process and everything's okay. And if somebody says that this zoning is what it is what it is. And if, you know, that just leaves too many things to chance. And what we're trying to do here is make sure that whatever that is required from those individuals or those developers to do, it's done before they can claim that new zoning designation that allows them to sell their property for a better price or for a different price, and leaving the people who buy them with a situation that they have to fix, and that sometimes they can't because it involves getting agreement from somebody that they have no control over.
Mr. Chairman.
Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah,
Yes,
Mr. Chairman, I want a process that will never leave the individual who bought the lots, like the people who came to one of our very first meetings when we were here, who had a parcel of land that was sold to them that they thought that they could build on, and they were unable to build on it because all of these things needed to be done beforehand, and they weren't done, and they had no idea. So
Well,
whatever,
that's the upshot, right?
yeah, whatever process is going to work so that we don't end up with people who have a piece of worthless land that they can't build on because they can't afford, or like Tony was saying, they have to get the approval of 4 other lot owners before they can do it. Sorry. That's what I want. I mean, that's the process I want.
Yeah, and I think you guys,
understand that.
yeah, and I think you guys are going through the process. You're just simply saying, okay, we can continue, in all fairness, just the numbers you gave us. I mean, if we've done 500 of them and 35 of them have problems, I would really honestly think that a lot of those just go back to the fact that a lot of people who thought development was going to continue on in the 2009, 2008, thought they were going to do them, and they, all of a sudden they dropped them, and some people just, when in need, they did whatever they had to do, and it created a problem for us. Now, I don't think that the process in itself, it's a problem. It's the way that we go ahead and allow people sometimes to do certain things or to claim certain things that they really shouldn't be able to. If all these transactions were recorded, it would, they would have a chance to pick it up. But a lot of them are they're not through a title company. They're done between people who sometimes just abuse each other. So whatever we're doing right now, which I think is you're giving us some options here, we can tighten up this process or utilize the performance process, making sure that things get done before, the property gets vested with the zoning. Any of those ideas would work.
Yes.
Would work as far as I'm concerned, as long as we're aware and we let everybody know, look, this is what needs to happen before this zoning becomes vested. Whatever, we're just trying to avoid something. Between human beings, there's going to be people who abuse the process.
Mr. Chairman, just to, the majority of the cases and properties that were split and sold without the schedule for development being completed were done prior to the land division permit process being adopted into the zoning ordinance.
So that's another level.
Another question. Of the 35 that you've identified, do you know how many of those have not had pieces sold off? Or do all 35 have a piece sold off? Do you know?
Mr. Chairman, I don't have that information. I would say that the majority of them have not been split. There is a couple where they were split and sold, but the majority of them are still in the original condition that they were when the property was rezoned.
That's good.
And it's about
That
time.
is good
We
news.
gave them plenty of time. As a matter of fact, we have renewed some of them. Throughout probably some of this 35, we have already tried to help them get the process going. And I think it's now down to the point where if you're not going to do it, then let's not continue giving this impression or image that, you have this when you, in actuality, you don't. All right.
One more thing.
One more thing.
On this, I would ask that if you reach out to these folks and you don't get a response or they don't care, bring 10 of them at once. If they're going, if we can just breeze right through them, so that we can do this process as quickly instead of just like 3 per. You know what I'm saying?
Mr.
Where
Chairman,
it makes sense,
get them all done.
load them up, so we can get through it more quickly.
That's the curse that you guys know that, it will happen. Every time you think you're
Yes.
going to do something quickly, it turns out into a nightmare.
For today's meeting, we have 4 cases scheduled for
Let's see how
consideration for
fast those
reversion.
go. Before you start wanting all 30 of them at the same time.
I didn't say 30 at the same time.
For the
Well, if they load them up.
April 6th meeting or April 2nd meeting, we have another 4 cases scheduled. And then between April 16th and June 18th, there'll be approximately 18 cases scheduled.
Oh, wow. That is loading them up.
But
We get a chance
that's
to
what we
practice
want,
is what
yeah.
you're saying. Okay, fine.
Chairman.
Thank you guys for the report. I'm sure we're going to hear this again, soon after this.
That's what
later
we're sure
on.
too. We have made attempts to get a hold of those people that we know have bought property or they've split it and bought the property. That, they're aware that this is coming back before us and
Just want to make sure, like I said, the property owners
We're setting
that,
up notices of the meetings and that they have an opportunity to be here. The other ways that we're informing people of
Stay, Maggie.
the
Why would we want to call you back? Stay until the end of this. You know what I'm telling you?
We've also put into the assessor's database, our permitting database, and the county GIS, a notation of the properties that are affected by this issue.
All right. Okay,
Mr. Chairman,
now,
one more thing.
one more thing. I told you, one more thing. This has been one more thing like 5 times now.
I'm going to take a step backward for you. I know that we voted to do the RFP, but I would like you to consider speaking with the city of Yuma to partner with them on a software that we could do jointly and jointly support. And that may be an opportunity to save even more money for both entities. I would ask you to explore that, please.
We have met with the city of Yuma and have gotten some good information from them as well. And that will be something we take into consideration as how we can get the software to
Be compatible.
And so forth.
And both go in on the same contract maybe to save money, or?
We can look into that.
It's difficult. The city moves really slow.
See, we would be helping the city out.
Oh, just kidding. Just kidding. I think the message is try as much as you can not to end up with a program that is not compatible, because really, I mean, for years, I think some of us are proud of the fact that for a long time, we had this combined plan, this united plan where the city limits and county limits didn't matter that much. We tried to work together with city officials to make sure that as much as possible, regulations were similar or compatible to each other. We like to continue with that, and that means that if we have to, or if we can, to join forces and blend in or try to join forces with them to make sure that the programs that we adapt, the software, the hardware, it's compatible to what they do, so save us all this problem with confusion, and save our constituencies the problems of having to match later on. Right? Thank you. Maggie, thank you very much. And this was an informational item, which I think should have probably, been the start of the, 4 items that are coming up later on the agenda. Anyway, that takes care of that item, and this is as long as we could keep, going before we called in, the next item for the bicyclist. But, we kept it here in the meeting for a long time. Very good, guys.
Part of our general public education.
Development Services and Engineering, item number 3 on the discussion and action items, is discussion and possible action to approve a typical roadway section for the proposed roadway widening project, the CIP 1.1302, which is in North Interstate 8, Frontage Road, Avenue 10E to Avenue 11E, and authorizing the engineering division to finalize the design and proceed to acquire the right-of-way necessary to construct the project. I do have notes here that a number of bicycle enthusiasts may attend to speak on the matter. I don't know. I don't think, they're here. So, Roger, get it going.
Morning, Roger Patterson, Yuma County Engineer, and the first thing I'd like to do is introduce a new employee. This is Sammy Ayub with the engineering department.
Why is he sitting over there next to the other folks there? I was starting to, really, I didn't even realize he was a county employee. I thought he came in with the engineering division over there from some other place, some private sector individuals.
He is our capital improvement program manager. It's a new position. And so he's overseeing these projects, and he comes from us from a career at the Maricopa County Department of Transportation. So.
Oh, so he's not used to all this friendliness.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, okay.
Chairman, board members, good morning.
Good morning.
Again, my name is Sam Ayub with the Engineering Division. We're here to discuss the CIP project 11302, I-8 North, Frontage Road from 10E to 11E, particularly to discuss the potential of adding bike lanes to the proposed improvements of this project. This is really a continued agenda item from September 6th of 2017. The board asked us to explore various options, and we've asked our design consultant, Core Engineering, to look into those options, and they have a short presentation of those options with the pluses and minuses of those options too. So.
I've yet to see that, the shortness part, yeah.
Chairman Reyes, supervisors, Doug Nichols with Core Engineering Group. It's Kevin Burge, also with Core Engineering Group. Good to be before you here today. We have this handout is the same presentation you're going to see on the screen. So feel free to doodle or change things as you.
I do want to emphasize,
yes,
Mr. Williams, that Supervisor Porches regretfully informed me that he had to leave a little early, and he tried to stay as long as possible to listen to the presentation, but he has something to do.
Necessary, be happy to meet with him individually.
That's not exactly what he said, but it's fine.
Fair enough. All right. So first I thought we'd talk a little brief history. Core Engineering Group was hired to finish the design for from the north frontage road from Avenue 10E to Fortuna Road. And at that time, the original scope had no bike lanes or bike facilities included. So upon presentation of the project to the supervisors, to yourselves, early last year, it was requested that bike lanes were added to the project, which, as Mr. Ayub notated, we did present in September. And then there was a lot of discussion about options and costs and different things. And so we were asked to come back and look at general overall bicycle facilities and several different options. So what we did is we opened up the book from AASHTO on bicycle facilities and reviewed the policy and practice guideline of bicycle routes in Yuma County that reflects the ADOT standards. We looked for updated costs for prevailing construction projects in the recent time to see what our options were, as well as trying to reflect what we talked about in the meeting back in September. So just as a reminder, this is the original cross-section. We had, if you remember last time, we had kind of an issue trying to zoom in and out of the plan. So we've skipped that, and we're just working kind of with the generic cross-section of the road. This time we do have roll plots, and we do have electronically if you want to try that again, but we felt this was a clear way to talk about it. So this was the original section without the bike lanes. The purpose of showing this is really to show kind of the base cost. This was about $3.5 million for improvements. And then, so we looked at some of the options that we talked about last time. A shared path would be bicycle traffic all on one side of the road behind the curb. Whether that's a concrete or an asphalt path, it is pretty much immaterial. We looked at this, reviewed the manuals and the design guidelines. There's some real concerns over this application because of the frequency of driveways and crossroads, cross streets. It creates a situation where a driver looking to go either in or out of one of those driveways may not be expecting a fast-moving bicycle from the right side, whereas you would be from the left side. And so there's a sight distance, a safety concern. So this is not one that is, from an engineering perspective, recommendable from our design and analysis. So what we looked on is a shared roadway. And this is where you don't have a you don't have a striped facility, but you do have an extra wide lane. You have 15.5 feet of paved surface for both car and bicycle traffic. Because it's not striped, there's the ability to kind of move in and out. This is used in a lot of probably more urban type environments. It's kind of a fluid type of process. You really can't make the lane any wider, because then what happens without striping, you get two-way. People try to run cars side by side, and that's just obviously not safe. So again, given the mix of speeds and the types of traffic on the north frontage road, again, it's not something that was recommendable from an engineering standpoint. Then we moved on to this actual bike lanes. This was the modified design where we did a few things. If you remember, we had a 2-foot offset between the sidewalk and the back of curb. Well, with a bike lane, you already really have a buffer, so we removed that 2-foot offset, let us reduce the right-of-way width a little bit. We also worked with ADOT, and the issue on the right side of the typical section is that you have to get signage in there, and the signage needs to be far enough off the road so it doesn't get hit. Well, in speaking with ADOT, we're able to encroach into the ADOT right away and overhang the sign a little bit, a foot or two, which helped us again reduce the footprint. And then we took the bike lane, delineated it to the face of curb, but the standards require 4 foot minimum of paved surface. So we do have the 4 foot minimum of paved surface before you get to the gutter pan with that grade separation there at the gutter pan. So this would be the minimal application where you have the ability to have pedestrians as well as segregated bike lanes on this section. This is a $4.2 million option. Right-of-way cost included into that number. And then just as kind of a reflection, this is where we were when we came before you in September. We had the 2 foot concrete pathway separation. We had the 5 foot bike lane separate from the curb and gutter. And then we had a greater distance between the back of sidewalk, the back of curb and the ADOT right-of-way on the right side. And that was, that option was 4.4, almost $4.4 million. And then, okay, this one here, there was a discussion about do we really need sidewalks? So we pulled the sidewalks off. If you look, there's like $80,000 difference in that cost between that and this previous section that had the full bike lanes also. So not a dramatic savings, but if that was the desire to not have pedestrian access along the road, that would be your section. So just in summary, this is what we're looking at. The base section, the original design without bike lanes was about $3.5 million. The revised bike lanes, which I think optimizes the right-of-way, still provides for pedestrian access as the 4.2, and then we have the 2 other ones with the bike lanes, the full bike lane section, and then with no sidewalk. And with that, I'm open for questions.
I have a question right away. The additional cost is obviously going to be right away, you know, mostly. I mean, it's like $800,000 on one and $700-some thousand on the other one. The time frame. I mean, maybe the question shouldn't be to you, but should be to engineering. What are the time constraints on the funding here, Roger? You know, I mean, what? Oh, or Sammy. I'm sorry. I mean, Sam. You know, I mean, are we looking at a situation where the money is coming from a source where it needs to be spent, you know, relatively soon? Are we, you know, what right-of-way acquisition? It's a crapshoot. I mean, it can happen relatively quick if everybody agrees, but then it can linger on for years if somebody disagrees and we have to go condemnation or we have to do something, you know, a little off. And I'm concerned that right now we'll be, you know, if we settle on this path, you know, that we may not totally consider some of the outside factors here. And one of them to me would be, okay, is the funding safe and secure for a longer period of time? Second, how much time additionally would this add to a project? Possibly how much time would it add to the project? Not considering the cost now, just the time.
If you recall, the majority of this project funding, about $3 million, the county entered into an IGA with the city of Yuma to fund 8th Street. So the majority of this funding was transferred over to 8th Street. And so there's very little funding left over in this project this fiscal year. It's been proposed to continue the funding that we originally had into next fiscal year, a portion of it. We can't fund $3.5 million in 1 year, $2.5 million CIP budget. If you pick an alternative than what's the base design, then it needs to be redesigned. And so there's a period of time to refine the plans, get them back out to utilities, get their comments. There's probably going to be some additional utility relocations as part of that. And then once the plans are finalized, then we go into the right-of-way acquisition. And this can be stretched out because we're taking several RV park spaces. In the future, we've gone into condemnation because there's an argument of our appraiser and their value of it. But those are just things that work out on all projects. And so we're looking at about 2 years, 2 to 3 years. By the time we can recapture all the additional funding, because if funding comes in, if you appropriate additional funding to this project, then we have to reallocate the monies that are presently allocated to other projects and get them in outlying years. there's a certain pot, and so if you're allocating more monies to a particular project, any project, we need to reappropriate the monies.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I totally didn't get it. It was too long. Your explanation was too long.
There's no special
You
use
know,
funds. There's no special.
There's
I'm
no
sorry.
special use funds we could.
It is only her funds.
It is
So
only her
this
funds.
This is whatever money is left over after maintenance.
But it would take maybe 2 to 3 years longer because of the redesign, the reacquisition of right-of-ways, the possible, problematic way that we go about.
First
2 to 3 years.
alternative, minimize the right-of-way acquisition. Of course, this extends it throughout the project.
Well, I've been trying to do the extension of Avenue B for like 10 years, so I mean, getting a little used to it. Go ahead, Supervisor McLeod.
So it's unfortunate, but I enjoy arguing with the experts. So
you can find them, huh?
Mr. Nichols, the question I have is that I listened to your explanation and I understand what you were talking about when you talk about the shared use path. Primarily, the concern is vehicles, moving in, sometimes primarily off of the main roadway, entering into these driveways, and there are numerous driveways. So, first question, with a bike path, how does that change that? You're still going to have bicycles moving, so to me, my simple mind, it doesn't really change that fact. That fact is still there, even if you have a bike lane.
Chairman Reyes, Supervisor McLeod, excuse the councilman remark. It changes it because the direction of traffic changes. So bicycles are now headed towards traffic when you have a shared use path, because all the bikes are operating on one side of the road, whereas when you have bike lanes, you're riding with traffic in each direction. So the drivers are expecting cars from a certain direction. They'll also see the bikes coming from the same direction. However, on a path, you have them coming from both directions on the bicycles.
Okay, I understand. And then secondly to that, why couldn't we achieve the safety with signage for bicycles? In other words, you would sign that route with bicycles, slow, maximum speed, 15 miles an hour in this section. Bicyclists can still get from foothills into town, which is what they're after. And so if we sign that and tell the bicyclists, slow down, put up intersection signs, look for traffic before crossing. They're not going to have the speeds they're used to riding, but we can increase the amount of safety that's there and provide these bike lanes without spending almost $1 million for 2 miles.
So it doesn't change the rules of the road as far as who has right-of-way. The bicycle's on the through road, so it would have right-of-way and precedent over the incoming traffic off the side streets. Signage is difficult to enforce, especially when you have a disparity between the traffic of the vehicles, the motorized vehicles versus the pedal power vehicles. So that disparity, I'm not exactly sure how you would enforce that as well. I've never seen that done to help minimize the danger. I would be concerned with how effective it actually would be, because I don't know how many people pay attention to speed limit signs. It's usually a factor of how comfortable you are traversing an area is really what determines the speed at which you travel. Enforcement is a minor amount, and I don't know how much the sheriff will be willing to enforce a bicycle shared use path.
Yeah, it was just more to warn the bicyclists that,
you're sharing the road.
You need to be slowing down, you need to be aware of your surroundings. This is not a typical bike path, and there's a lot of driveways.
Understood.
I know you can understand where I'm at. I'm trying to get this done, but it's hard to justify spending almost $1 million on 2 miles of bike path. It's just very difficult.
I do understand where you're coming from, so that's why I'm not advocating for one solution over another. Just
No, I understand.
If whatever we do, I have an obligation to make sure it's safe.
Right.
And that's where I'm coming from.
Okay, well, let's listen to the bike proponent people for a second or two, unless you have a technical question. Sorry.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I had a question for
Sorry.
maybe Roger.
Roger.
Is this
Or
scheduled
Sandy.
to have an overlay at any time in the near future?
We're gonna have to start.
And what I'm kind of going towards is, if it's scheduled to have an overlay, what says we can't overlay the right of way to expand it out where there's a good paved portion for the bikes to use at the same time we're doing an overlay? and then just, stripe it or whatever to keep it, separate. It still can be used an emergency lane, but it's also given a better path for the cyclist to
Before
have
2 years
access,
and 3 years from now, yeah.
Give us the time, you mean, to work our
Yeah,
way into
to
a...
work on it. If we're going to do an overlay on that stretch, just overlay it
Farther out.
farther out and then stripe it. That way there's a dedicated path or a dedicated smooth roadway for you to ride on, and not
We can
just the
take 10
shoulder.
years to do it.
It may take that to get the land anyway.
Okay, well, you're talking about a different situation now. You're talking about...
I know, but.
Hold on a minute. You're talking about a different
Existing
situation.
right-of-way is very limited on the frontage road.
So right
And
away,
if you do start widening it, you'd have to relocate some of the utilities. And I think essentially, if you're going to spend over $1 million to do an overlay, it's a replacement project instead of doing a full-blown widening, which is similar to what we did on the south frontage road. But we're here to take direction if you want to pursue that alternative.
Well, it may be an alternative that provides a solution, a quicker solution.
Doesn't
at a
provide
less
for
cost.
pedestrians, yeah.
All right, well, we're here to listen to this particular proposal. Let me listen to, I'm sure the bike users are going to want to have a say, so I'm gonna let them have a say. I just want to tell you, though, that as far as I'm concerned, the board here feels very, very strongly, and I've heard any no different than that, we'd like to do as much as we can to make sure that, bicycles are taken into account. So knowing that, okay, when you come up front, remember, you're already on the winning side. Not say anything or do anything to damage that. Okay, Gene?
Yes, sir.
You first.
Thank you. Gene Dalby, 1183 West 37th Street, Yuma, Arizona. And Mr. Chairman, board members, thank you. Thank you over and over 100 times for at least getting to this point in this project. Essentially, we feel that the foothills is really a city, and there's many aspects of it that should be included, such as the bicycling facilities to get around and get to the places that they need to go. It's not just a matter of exercise, it's a matter of destination. And as you saw in the project that you've already approved, reference to bike routes, that's a big step in the right direction. However, it's more of an exercise effort than it is a destination effort. But more importantly, it brings to the attention of the motorists throughout the area that come across those bike lanes that bicycles are out there. And it's important for them to be alert in their driving skills, that bicycles come on them sometimes suddenly and unexpectedly. And the caution is increased by having awareness of bicycles out there. And I think that's important as far as safety is concerned. Safety is becoming more and more and more of an issue all over the roadway system in the country. People running stop signs, high speed, inattentive driving, a number of other items like that that are critical. So I think the step in this direction of putting this kind of a project together, it's not just bicycling. It's the community, it's the quality of life, it's what you say about your county and how much more you appreciate it by including these infrastructures. I sent to you an email that covered about 60 benefits to bicycling. I'm sure that amongst those 60 benefits, one of them might appeal to you. I know that without any doubt that throughout the county, every citizen, one of those means something. So I can't find a project that has so much impact in a community as this might, and more importantly, leading on into the potential of what risk can happen. The one concern I have with respect to the project particularly is the curbing. And I'm not an engineer by any stretch of the imagination, so the curbing as I saw it, it's a vertical curb. And there may be something regarding irrigation or water flow or something like that that requires that kind of a curb. But the disadvantage to it is that it's no exit for bicyclists who's being aggressively assaulted by an automobile. If a person, and it does happen, and you guys, if you haven't ridden bicycle, maybe when you were younger perhaps, I don't know what your exercise level is today, but some motorists really get upset about bicyclists, and they do take their automobile and use it as a weapon. And it is a chargeable offense, and it is a felony if I'm not mistaken. But if there's an exit route for the bicyclists to take off, to get off the bike path and get out of the way, then so be it. That should happen. But when the curb is the vertical curb, it's darn tough to get over that curb with any bicycle. So if there could be a way that the curve could be designed with the slope, I'm sure most of you understand that, similar to an elevated driveway kind of a situation, that would be an improvement in the safety aspects of it. I'm not sure if that's a possibility or not, but we'd certainly like to look at it. So from my perspective, I'm very much in favor of this particular project. I don't ride that area particularly. I live over by the convention center, and most of my bicycle riding is on the bike path itself. So I'd like to give an opportunity to Mr. Brand to talk about the foothills aspect of this project. Thank you.
All right. Tag, huh?
Mr.
Jeff?
Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman, members of the Board of Supervisors, thank you. We support the recommendation of the consulting group not to do a shared path or a slightly expanded road. We agree with their analysis that those options are not viable from a safety perspective. When you look at who bikes in that area, it's not necessarily the spandex crowd. It's the folks who live in the RV parks. It's the folks who live in the seasons. And they use that area. You'll see them struggling on the sand trying to get the fries. A lot of them use their bicycles for shopping. So there is a real safety perspective that exists right now with respect to the way in which the road is being used by cyclists. The other thing to note is that 10E is a relatively untraveled road and therefore rather safe for cyclists, which means that once you go ahead with this project, there is a whole other way to get on there, opens up a big piece of the community, 2 other RV parks, plus a huge piece of the seasons that can easily access this bike lane to be created. So there's a huge piece of the community that would be using this. Want to reinforce the curb issue. We really would prefer a rolling curve to a right angle kind of curve for safety perspectives. But essentially, the bike route, as you may have noticed, Fry's has a bike rack, and the reason Fry's has a bike rack is because a lot of people go there by bike to buy their groceries. And a lot of those people are RVers who we want to attract and retain in Yuma County. As some of you may have seen the paper, we had a bicycle tag sale and bicycle expo this weekend. And I got a call from one lady who was like starting to scream at me because there were no, quote, freaking bike routes in the county, unquote. So I explained to her that at this point in time, I wasn't able to dictate to the Board of Supervisors what to do. But that Chairman Reyes would be happy to hear from her and gave her the access to tell her how to get in touch with Chairman Reyes. And she was a winter visitor and saying, if there were better bike facilities, she'd be here every single year. So I tried to encourage her to join the Foothills Bike Club and come with us and learn the safer routes that we have sort of marked out for ourselves. But at any rate, this is a route which really would be a community service route for the community. We strongly support it. We hope that you will proceed with it. It would surely be the biggest statement the county has made with respect to supporting cycling, and it will directly impact on winter visitors, both in the RV parks and in the seasons. And those are folks that we need to keep and to encourage more to come. You've heard me talk about that before many times, and we just keep hearing it over and over and over again, which is why we sell it to you over and over again. But any of the sort of D-version solutions we think would work and be viable, and we hope that you'll give them serious and hopefully positive consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Mayor, excuse me, Mr. Williams.
Supervisor.
Mr. Williams. Why do they call him Williams? Doug Williams. Nichols, Mr. Nichols.
Chairman Reyes and supervisors, I thought I addressed the curb issue real quick. A vertical curb would be appropriate for the speed, because we also want to protect the pedestrians. If it's mountable for a bike, it's mountable for a car. I found in my years of riding, a quick tap of the brakes and the cars fly right on by. It's not great because it breaks your pace, but it does kind of help with that situation. But there's hydraulic drainage issues on that kind of roll curve too. So this is state of the art. This is the method of practice for this type of facility.
Right.
I have a question for
Sure.
Mr.
Question
Nichols.
for
On
Mr.
the
Nichols.
roadway with bike lanes, I know it's probably a dumb question, but I have to assume when we're looking at this section, we're looking east.
You're correct. Yes,
Right?
you are looking
Okay.
east on all these sections.
Yeah,
Apologize, I didn't orientate you. Correct. You have the freeway to the right,
Yeah,
and
of
then the
course.
development to the north. Yes.
That seems kind of obvious. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, that's where the sidewalk would be. You don't want to cross over, walk on that. All right, got it, thank you. I do have a couple of extra cards. Do they still want to come up? Mr. Truax, Ed? Yeah, sure.
My name is Ed Truax. I'd like to thank you for giving me this time. I'm the president of the Los Amigos RV Park on the frontage road, which is this particular section. And my question is, when is this scheduled to work to be done on the frontage road? We have a number of concerns as far as how much of our property would be taken. And we need some capital improvements with fencing and parking lot and things like that, that we would like to tie in to the road construction so that it all happens at the same time. If there was any plans to when it's going to get started, it would be nice to know that. The other thing would be Avenida Compadre, the side street. That's a tremendously busy street. I mean, that consumes all of Los Amigos, and all of the seasons, and the traffic there is, really, really heavy. The road itself is very wide. It's probably legally 3 or 4 lanes wide. It is not striped, and if it had a stripe or even a walking path stripe, it would be very much needed. A lot of people walk, everyone in our park walks, and they bicycle, and they seem to do the cul-de-sacs. They start at their street because it's all cul-de-sacs. And they go out and they go up and down every cul-de-sac to try to get their 4 or 5 miles in and back to the clubhouse, and that's kind of a routine. And especially at night, it's very dangerous there. It's a stargazing community, and it's very dim lit. There's one street light on each cul-de-sac, which is fine. But don't ask me why a lot of the people always seem to wear black clothes here in Yuma. I mean, I'm a resident here, and I live here year round, and it's crazy. You're going down the road, and you can go out to dinner and have one cocktail and driving down the road, and all of a sudden you look, and there's a guy out in front of you that's walking all in black. I mean,
He's
it's
either
crazy.
Canadian
You
or
can't
from
see
back
him.
east.
Pardon?
He's either a Canadian or from back east.
Probably.
He hadn't been here long enough.
Could be. I've lived here 9 years now. But anyway, it's a concern. And I know that last year, for the first time in a long time, they came and threw some cold patch into the potholes on Avenida Compadre. But what happens with that is every time you get a little bit of a rain, the cars, there's so much traffic going back and forth. When they go over all of them little cracks, the dirt comes out, and pretty soon you got big chunks of asphalt. And that road is in very bad shape. And I know we're not talking about that right now, but it does need to have some concerns in the future. And my main concern, again, is, like I said, for what's going to happen with our parking lot and how soon is this project of some means going to be started.
All right, Mr. Truax, I mean, we don't really know. We're going through the planning process. I think that the question was asked earlier about, okay, how much time would it take, the right-of-way acquisition? But I'm sure that there will be a process to keep you informed, especially if you're property owner next to the project. There will be plenty of time to deal with coordinating, your improvements with the county if you have enough right-of-way left.
Yeah, well, that was our concern. Our clubhouse is fairly close. And right now, If you're traveling east on the North Frontage Road, you really can't pull into our property. We have an entrance driveway and an exit driveway, but it's got a double yellow line. So you really can't turn into the property. You need to go up to one of the other streets, make a U-turn, and come down and then turn to the right into our property. So it's,
Oh, yeah.
it needs some attention.
We don't want to tell them.
In listening to Roger, if we're not mistaken, we're pushing this thing out 2 to 3 years, and if we go with the bike lane, that's an additional year, right?
Almost. I mean, it could be done, but it's still a matter of more than months. It's a matter of years before we get to it, really, unless we do something to batch it up, which is different. Go ahead, Rogers. I'm sorry. The question is.
Certainly, whatever the board's direction today, I'll have to revise the 5-year CIP, and what I think is reasonable, and realistic.
Yeah, but I guess
it's realistic. We're looking 3-4 years, right?
That's correct.
No, we're looking down the road. I mean, and again, I insist that this is the kind of project that's going to take a lot of coordination with the local folks because it's going to be interfering with their way in and out. So you will be aware, you will be advised, and we'll take down your name and make sure that you are. Sammy, is there something you want to say?
Again, we need some direction on this
Oh,
project.
we have one more. I have
you got-
Marty Hoganson. Just wanted to get everybody in.
Good morning. I live on South William Street, which is right along Avenida Compadre. I just wanted to add that most of those RV parks along that stretch don't have a back entrance. Everyone has to come out on the frontage road, whether they're on bikes or whether they're walking or whether they're driving. So that frontage road gets really busy. I'm just concerned that might be 5 years before this gets done, we still do it well. And not to save a little money, find out we've done something that isn't quite get it after all this time.
All right. We get it. I think it's a little more than a little money. That's why. If it was a little money, I think we could just get it done.
Almost $1 million.
It's about $1 million. It's just what you said though. The message that you said is if I hear it correctly, is that if you're going to do it, you're only going to do it right.
Yeah.
Take whatever time it takes, but do it right. Right.
Otherwise, we're stuck with it.
Otherwise, we're stuck with more problems in the future. Yeah. Right? Okay, now, Sammy, you want to come up?
So the base typical section cost about 3.5 million.
We got
And adding bike lanes at least is gonna add $700,000. And as far as right of way takes, if we enter into condemnations, that's gonna prolong the process. And
Right, so in summary, we have options A through D1, and the base one is 3.483. The revised with bikes is 4.176. The base with bike lanes is $4,362,000. The base with bike and no sidewalks is $4,288,000. And so, taking any of these options will move us backwards at least a year because we need to redo right of ways, we need to redo design work. So the decision for us right now, to me, it's kind of simplified. Either we proceed with it as it is right now, which I find that unlikely now that we have all these other, issues coming up, or we decide to go one of the other options and see which one of them works out better in terms of time and in terms of money. How are we going to get the money? How are we going to get the time? And how are we going to get the right of ways resolved? And it's either you do it well with everything included, or you do it minimal, which is what we used to do. Right? Did I summarize it more or less? Okay, thank you, Sammy. Now, does the board want to make a decision, or do you want to research any other options here? I mean, I'm talking about options like widening the road right now, giving us a few more years. We're still going to have to go through the right of way. Anything else that the board wants to discuss? If not, then do you guys want to make a decision today? Or do you want to think it over? I mean, it's not like, it's going to go away or change much, but.
Well,
I have a question,
Sure.
Mr. Chair. Sammy, if we don't make a decision, do these numbers start going up, correct?
Yeah.
I
No,
mean,
inflation or?
because of inflation, because of the cost of materials, and and the property values and
Correct.
things like that. So if we choose not to make a decision, then those numbers start
And-
increasing. Or would those numbers, Mr. Chairman and Sammy, would those numbers increase regardless
When you-
because we
when
still
you,
have 3 years to go on this?
Yeah.
When you want to decide on a project, you base it on present value throughout all options. And so the present value is this. Delaying it, I think that the key element would be the need for the bicycle facilities. You'll have more needs in the future than today. Personally, I tried to do a benefit cost analysis on this. Couldn't collect any information, accident information in that area pertaining to bicyclists. So
Let me just say that in my opinion, it's either we're going to do it the way we're going to do it, minimalistically, the way we used to, or we're going to do it the right way, which to me, the right way would mean putting in the sidewalk, putting in the bike lanes, separating the bike lanes. The difference between options C, D, and D1, it's, a couple $100,000. And it means either removing sidewalks or removing striping, separating bicycles. I don't think none of those are worth that amount of money. I think that the decision for me at this board needs to make is whether we're going to go and do it the way we used to do it with just the project as we had it and hopefully get that done within the next couple of years, or go into a full-blown improved right away that has sidewalks, that has bike lanes, and if the constituency is willing to wait for a couple of extra more years to get the right project, that would be the decision I think the board needs to make. And I think once we make that, there will be no going back. From that point on, we all need to assume here that from that point on, we're going to be doing design with bike lanes on it. Because I think it'll be very difficult to tell, a section of the county, well, we did it this way here, but we're gonna do it like the old way here. So this is not just a decision of this particular portion of road. To me, it's more a decision of whether we're going to fully commit to, to making these improvements at the county level. And that's not gonna be small change. And I look at Supervisor McLeod because it's always been about, the cost of doing things and the difference between county standards and city standards out in the rural areas. Now, when somebody came up and said the Foothills is a fully developed city, the problem is they're not. They're a fully developed county area that doesn't want to be a city because they don't want to pay for the city things or whatever the decision is, but they do want the kind of improvements, infrastructure that a city it's equipped to make for them. And the county really is facing a brave new world here, when we go ahead and start doing this thing. So I know that to some people, this is just a 2-mile stretch of road. To most of us, it's just, changing the way we look at roads in the county from this point on, unless we're willing to deal with some neon colored, riders coming over saying, why did you do that there and not do it here?
Set a
That kind of
precedence,
stuff.
yeah.
Right?
It will set a precedent.
Okay, so that's why I said, do you want to make a decision now or do you want to think it over? Because I think this road can use in other words, if you took 2 more weeks or 4 more weeks to make this decision, it wouldn't make any difference. To me, what will make a difference is what you decide to do. Because I think that sets up the future. Right? Now, if I did I make it easy for you or harder for you?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Do we know if the city has any plans to annex this piece of property?
No.
I don't think the city needs to have plans to have it. It's whether the Foothills residents have a plan to annex into the city. I think the city would have annexed them a long time ago. No, that's not the issue today. The issue today is whether we're going to do this road and which way we're going to do it out of this options here.
There is a movement in Mesa del Sol to get annexed.
Yeah, well, it could be. And, if they do it quickly enough, we may turn this over to the city. But again, we need to make a decision. We need to move on. Roger?
I can't speak for the city, but presently the city annexation is aligned with the city water and sewer franchise, so, which is Tenny.
Okay. Well, I'm going to allow now the engineer from Corps Engineering to put on his mayor hat and come up and say something because, I wouldn't,
Chairman Reyes, supervisors. As far as the city's perspective, we have no aggressive annexation activities going on anywhere. There's been some discussion of other areas that are unincorporated, but the position of council has been we're not forcing people to annex based upon trying to find loopholes and things. So there's no active activity by the city. It would have to come from the residents in order to become annexed.
That's what I thought. Just
if we move this to the next meeting, my vote carries more weight.
That's right.
So
The vice chairman reminded me that may not be here the next meeting, so he has more weight if he waits until the next meeting. But that's not gonna matter today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so what's the pleasure of the board?
He doesn't have to make a decision.
You know, this is hard because you know, this board has been historically very conservative. And it's been referred to as a little bit of money, but it's not, it's a lot of money. And I think the chairman is right. It kind of sets the tone going forward. So we'll be able to develop fewer roadways and the time between is going to be greater. So, you know, philosophically, from a conservative standpoint, I'm like, no, this doesn't make any sense. But our job is a little bit more than looking at today. Our job is to think, what does our community look like in 20 years, 25 years? And I see where the city has done a pretty good job of being proactive in bike lanes. And slowly but surely that is happening across the city. So I don't know, I have an inclination to go along with it, thinking about how we look in 20 and 25 years and the people, what the people, our younger generations, what their activities are and what their activities are likely to be. We're moving away from, shuffleboard and maybe, lounging around the pool to a much more active lifestyle. It's just the way things have progressed.
For a longer period.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you start thinking about what will your county look like in 20 years. If we stay minimalistic, it may not be in our best advantage long term. That's kind of where I'm at.
Right. So do you want to put that in a motion or what do you want to do? Because I can put it in a motion if you don't want to do that. Do you want to?
I'll go ahead and make a motion that we go with the roadway with bike lanes D. Because like I said, I think we're going to start looking forward on it. We're going to start looking forward, like Russ was saying, 20, 25 years from now. We want to just keep kind of putting a Band-Aid on it and passing it on or go ahead and step up and let's start.
Are you going to second that?
I'll second it.
Right. So as you can tell without a lot of more words, the choice D is the Cadillac of the road improvement one.
Oh, good. I get to vote no and it'll pass.
Well, nobody says, oh, boy. This has been like the trend lately for me to make a decision on these things. But anyway, there's been a motion and a second to go ahead and pursue option D, which is the alternative D, which is the one that includes everything that's been considered to be, quote, necessary in some way or another, I think, in that particular roadway. Is there any more discussion? I think we've had plenty of discussion.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I almost didn't pay attention. Would you consider modifying your motion to C instead of D?
I'm not. Oh, you mean you're talking about Mr. Simmons?
He accomplishes the same thing at a lower cost.
Yeah, but he doesn't have sidewalks, and he doesn't have.
Yeah, it does have sidewalks.
Yeah.
What, item C?
Yeah, it has sidewalks where it needs them.
What are we missing then? The bike lane designation, a wider road? What? I already forgot.
Optimized. We removed the 2-foot sidewalk, that concrete pavement between the sidewalk and the curb, and we were able to adjust some of the other dimensions minor, the 5.5-foot bike lane, but 4 foot of paved asphalt. So it reduced the section a little bit.
So it just reduces the actual width of the road, it takes out that 2 feet buffer.
The bike lane is 4 foot instead
All
of
right.
5.
Okay, I get it.
The
We're
bike
trying
lane
to
is 4
accomplish
feet
everything
instead of
with a minimum.
I'd like to amend my motion to
Let
C.
me back up. There has been a motion and a second. So now there's an amended motion that you want to amend the motion, the original motion. Why don't you just take your second back, and we'll have a new motion happen. Is that okay?
I take my second back.
Right. So now we don't have a motion.
And I think Russell should make it.
Yeah, Russell, why don't you make it?
I think it should.
Yeah, you should make it. I mean,
Hey, this is
no,
your district.
no, you messed it up. All right, okay, now I need a motion, and
I will
think
make the motion that we go with Plan C.
with option C,
with
which
bike
includes
lanes.
everything. It's just, it's just I think it goes in character with, the way we sort of look at this thing. So is there a
Makes the
second?
bike lane
Yeah,
about
makes
this
bike-
much
Yeah.
less wide.
Yeah.
And I second it.
So now there's a new motion to take on option C and continue with that, Sammy. Any more discussion on this? No more discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carries 4-0. All right, guys.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Someday in the future, it would be noted that due to the tremendous leadership of this issue, we ended up on
Thank you.
revised road. All right, now, we got another item number 4, that we need to get onto it, and it's traffic safety presentation. And let me just say, we've had this presentation already. You guys don't have to go through this again. All we need now is sort of like a refresher course for 3 minutes, 5 minutes, and then we can tell you that everything you said was okay, or that we have some other additional stuff that we'd like to take a look at. But you gave us a presentation not even a week ago.
Correct.
So don't feel inclined to do it again.
Chairman Reyes, members of the board, you're absolutely right. We gave this presentation, the long version, at the retreat about a week ago. So we have the condensed version.
All right, give me the condensed version.
Okay.
10 minutes is too long. You have 5 minutes.
All right. We briefly talked about the Traffic Control Review Committee and who it's comprised of, and it's basically our tool to try to address intersection safety. At the committee, we review the top 50 intersections that occur out in the county. We do queries using 2 different databases. Intersection improvements, when we do identify improvements that need to be looked at, what we do is we use the incremental approach, larger stop signs, start small, go bigger, up to full traffic signals. We did talk a little bit about intersection illumination. We have 2 warrants that we currently use. It's my understanding the board wishes to take a look at this illumination warrants and come up with some alternatives to address intersection lighting out in rural areas. Just real quick, an example of the query that we use to take a look at. That ranks the intersections from 1 to 50. Okay, this is actually a new slide. We want to touch a little bit on Yuma County bridges. We do have 97 classified bridges, and what classified means is that actually the Federal Highway Administration actually keeps track of these 97 bridges. And basically what those structures are structures that span over 20 feet. So anything that spans over 20 feet, FHWA tracks them, and we're required to inspect every 2 years. With that said, ADOT inspects our bridges, and in 2015, they did the biannual inspection, and they found that we had 5 bridges that were structurally deficient.
6, actually.
Right, but that wasn't, we have a total of 6. But in 2015, ADOT classified 5 bridges as structurally deficient. Of those 5 bridges, we took a look at those, and we currently have County 12th Street and Avenue D Bridge. ADOT's going to administer the construction. We're going to reconstruct it. We're going to put in the box culvert. We have 2 bridges that also recently got awarded by ADOT to police construction. And that's going to start this construction or rehabilitation this year. The 2 other bridges are currently in design, and they're scheduled to be rehabilitated in fiscal year 19. 2017 bridge inspections that ADOT did also found another bridge that was structurally deficient. And for that bridge, we've submitted an application to ADOT to request for federal funding. So there is a process now. Before we'd submit the request and we'd get funded. Now there is a little process to it, and so we've submitted that, and we should get funding here shortly. Maintenance. Once ADOT completes the inspections for our bridges, they give us a list of maintenance items. We turn around and give that to Public Works, and they'll address any minor maintenance issues with the bridges. Culvert maintenance and reconstruction. We have easily over 600 culverts in the county. In the past 10 years, we've been able to replace 25 of these structures at a cost of about $2.5 million. And what we do is we widen those culverts so that there's a larger clear zones. And it also keeps farm vehicles, when they're riding along their canal roads, it allows them some room to turn around and get on the other side of the canal without encroaching into the county roadway. Just want to touch real brief on the YMPO study. They have an update that is going out. It's actually currently out for proposals. And what it's going to do is going to update projects where they'll give an update on they'll give a BC ratio, in which we can turn around and use that BC ratio to identify potential HSIP projects where we can request federal funds. The anticipated completion date is September 2018. And with that said,
congratulations, you met the plan.
With that said, I wanted to take this time to give the board some time to discuss, give some direction at what kind of intersection safety improvements that the board wishes to take a look at.
That you open up a Pandora's box. It's,
I'm afraid I think I did.
The vice chair wants to talk about that. So. Supervisor McLeod.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So that was, first of all, let me tell you that I was very pleasantly surprised that intersection safety, or just plain safety out in the roads, considering what went on last winter, was placed so rapidly, so high in the ranking of importance and the things that we wanted to do. Because I think that last year, the obvious focus was on improving roadways, especially those outlying areas that hadn't had maintenance and service for a long time. You guys did a great job in there. And now I'm really pleasantly surprised to see that you move so fast in addressing the safety issues. Because I think once you start improving roads, people start traveling faster. They start moving quicker through those things. And sometimes that's to the detriment of safety. So it's good that I can see those two things that, once combined, they will actually do a better job on both sides of the issue. All right, so Supervisor McLeod.
Yeah, there's one thing I'd like to address, and part of your presentation was driven by, I think, mostly one supervisor in our last meeting, and you did a good job of addressing everything, but I have a concern, and that's with the illumination standard. I don't know exactly what it costs to illuminate intersections, but I know it's not inexpensive. And my concern on that is that we would be moving badly needed funds. I mean, this would be great if there were unlimited funding, but there isn't unlimited funding. I'm concerned that spending money trying to just light intersections, slowing us down or preventing us from having the budget to do real safety improvements where they're needed. Flashing stop signs, maybe a signal where indicated, but things that really, really make a difference. I know dark intersections aren't great, but that's different from intersections that we know that are dangerous and need real safety improvements. I'd like the board to consider making that like the lowest priority that we would have based on limited funding.
Well, this obviously this comes from a supervisor who lives mostly in the city, which it's easy for him to say that. He doesn't have to drive all this unlit, intersections. I don't think we have to sacrifice one or the other. I think that right now technology, especially solar energy, especially those type of the type that made illuminating a difficult, very expensive process. You know, going out in the rural area and getting APS to locate power and paying for it, which was an issue. You know, it was, I think, one of the highest drivers of cost in that situation. And we're not, I don't think any of us can, you know, just flat out state that we like to have all those rural areas lit. You know, most of the time they're not that well used. I think that we need to create a standard. I think that we've been talking about it for a while, that there has to be some sort of standard, that we just can't go up there and lit up every intersection out in the middle of nowhere. But I think that there probably has to be a standard that says if there's a number of vehicles that go through there per week, per month, whatever, per day or something, that it's a driver, not so much whether there's an intersection that I particularly think is too dark and it shouldn't be that way or something. I think that the best solution for that question, or I think the best answer for that question, is just simply to say that there will be standards utilized so that we don't end up spending needed money someplace else that will prevent, accidents and so forth in our search to illuminate intersections. I think that there's a balance that can be achieved, I think. And you guys, I think you're smart enough to do that.
Yeah.
Especially now that Supervisor Porches isn't here.
I didn't point the supervisor out, and I appreciate you supporting my position. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Although it comes from someone within the city there.
Chairman Reyes, Supervisor McLeod, that is something we can take a look at. We've had some discussions, maybe making it part of a development implementation. If there is no development in the area, then we can take a look at maybe some ADTs, come up with a threshold that after so many vehicles at a certain intersection, then maybe we can. And if there's a little hint of any type of accident, nighttime accidents, then maybe we can start taking a look at illuminating the intersection.
As long as you guys have some standards to follow, we'll all be protected from that situation where we just feel there's an intersection there that needs improvement. I think the department has gotten wise about those things, and I think that the issue that you always get is what comes first, right? Is it prevention or is it reaction? And the problem is sometimes we end up trying to make people understand we just can't prevent a lot of stuff from happening out in the rural areas. But we certainly don't want to be reacting all the time. And, it just got a little offensive years ago when you had to go through, you have to have 12 accidents with 2 deaths or something before you put in a street light. That kind of a philosophy, really isn't one that as elected officials representing the constituency it's really hard to defend. I mean, we have to wait until, more than 3 people die or more than 5 accidents happen. We tend to drive those roads and we tend to see those accidents and we tend to, to go through those intersections at night. So we tend to feel them much more often than someone that lives within city limits. And I think that gives us a different perspective. I'm sure that Supervisor Simmons will concur that, he drives through some intersections out there that if you're not watching, you go right by it. There's a stop sign and you just don't see it. I mean, you're just driving right down the road and you wonder sometimes, why is this stop sign here? Well, those type of things are going to be more common in rural areas. So I understand why Supervisor Porch should be more sensitive than Supervisor McLeod. But, that's why.
It's not my fault you guys live in the dark.
Well,
It's what I gotta deal with.
if you look at the top 13, which are all pretty much double-digit accidents, the majority of them are traffic lights and lit pretty much already.
Yes.
So it's
not about lighting.
Yeah,
certainly isn't.
Now there are some intersections out there in the county that do need lighting, but the majority of them are already lit where the heaviest accidents are.
So it's just a traffic situation. I think I think that anytime we don't combine our traffic safety improvements with a good educational campaign to make people aware that some of these issues are up there, we lose a little bit there. But anyway, the program is great. Everything is fine. Disregard what Supervisor McLeod said, and let's move on.
Got it.
Right?
Use
No, yes. Take into account, we don't want to lit every every.
We don't want to light everything, yeah.
Well, I think that we had a comment. I think what you wanted was just to put it up in front of us and for us to give you directions. The directions, I think, yeah, I don't know if it requires a motion or a vote, but I think we are directing you to follow through on that and start putting some of those infrastructure projects in process.
Got it.
Okay.
But was there anything else?
Don't ask that. I know what I'm telling you. I know what I'm telling you.
Open that door.
Don't ask that. You're lucky Supervisor Porches isn't here. But you see what happens?
Thank
Go
you for a
ahead.
good presentation.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right.
What you
The
thought?
next thing is, didn't we have a requirement that all consultants have to stay until the end of the meeting?
Yeah, really, yeah.
No, I'm just kidding you. Go ahead. They're billing us by the hour. You can go to it. So,
No, I was gonna say something, reference this last discussion.
whoa, it's over.
I know it is.
Go ahead.
But my concern is that in the bicycle arena, the county roads represent a lot of our travel time. And in light of that, I'd hope that there would be some bicycle something included in this safety effort. Either as a participant, I'd be glad to do that. I'm not an engineer, but I do know things about driving the roads. I've been a driver since I was 16. I'm 75, so it's a few years of experience. And I've traveled all over the country, not to mention Europe and Southeast Asia. So I think there's things that we can do in our bicycle safety environment. For example, illumination. I agree with you, Mr. McLeod, that illumination can get to be so darned expensive and the benefit is very small. As identified with the charts that were up there and the accidents and so forth. But there are illuminating signs, I've seen them around in some areas, where the stop sign is illuminated and a circular blinking red light, exactly, and it's powered by solar power. So the cost should be significantly minimal, and yet at the same time increasing the awareness, so that the texting driver, as they're driving on the county road, is not seeing a dark intersection with a faded stop sign, but they're seeing a blinking red light, a circumference around a stop sign that would at least hopefully alert them to stop. Not that they would, but nevertheless, it's more of an effort to get that to work. And anything else with respect to bicycling signage with the the manual on uniform traffic control devices. There's a lot of stuff in there about bicycles that can be placed on the roadway that helps the motor vehicles being aware of cyclists on the road for a safety element. Thank you for your time.
Anything but rumble strips, huh?
Yes, sir.
I get you now. All right. Okay, guys, thank you very much. We do appreciate the comments, okay? Thank you. We're moving on, or trying to move on to the planning and zoning agenda. And we have regular public hearing items, and we have, and reversion hearings. And the rezoning area of planning and zoning agenda, which will have full legal descriptions and of property size for all rezoning cases, are available for public review at the Yuma County Board of Supervisors, and we'll open up our first regular public hearing items where staff will make a full presentation on each of the following items, followed by separate discussion, public hearing, and action by the Board of Supervisors. Number 1, Development Services, the Zoning Division. Commission Initiative number 1702, which is a proposed text amendment to the Yuma County zoning ordinance, a lot of sections there, to address lot coverage requirements in the medium density residential, R2 high density residential, R3 and recreational vehicle subdivision, RBS zoning districts. I know that this is something that the commission is working on for a while, and I know that it has a large impact, especially out in the foothills where a lot of people have this issue in particular. So please, Mr. Rubio, go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman Reyes, members of the board. Juan Leal Rubio, Senior Planner with the Planning Zone Division. As you mentioned, we've been working on this for the last 6 months. This actually, it increases lot coverage on properties that are zoned RVS, R2, and R3. And this is the, would be a text amendment to section 60507, 60607, and 60907 of the Yuma County zoning ordinance. And it increases, again, lot coverage to 50% for properties that have septic systems. This is how the ordinance currently reads and how it would read. Strike through is what would be eliminated from the ordinance, and in bold is what we will add to the zoning ordinance, essentially removing any mention of the 30% when there's a septic system on the property. A little bit of history, this 30% rule was added back in 1977 for properties that were zoned R2 and R3. In 1989, under Commission Initiative 8801, it was added to properties on RVS and MHS. And then in the late 90s, it was removed from the MHS. The staff and the Planning and Zoning Commission both recommend approval of this commission initiative. And that concludes staff's presentation.
Good, it was a good one. Any questions?
No, I think we.
This is something we've waited for a while, so.
Yeah.
And we're totally aware of it, so. Any other comments? No, I'm gonna open it up for the public, to have a public hearing here. Is there anybody in the public that wants to address the board on this particular issue? If not, I'll close the public hearing and return it back to the board for their decision. Is there a motion from the board on this item?
Chairman, I would move we approve Commission Initiative number 17-02 as recommended by the Planning Commission.
Second.
Motion and second to approve this item as presented. Any more discussion? If there's no more discussion, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? The motion carries. Thank you very much. This was a long period for a very short, decision time frame, but it's a very important item for a lot of people.
Mhm.
All right, I'm going to go on to the rezoning reversion hearings in accordance with section 404.01, parentheses I, parentheses 7 of the Yuma County zoning ordinance. The board will conduct a hearing to grant an extension of time to comply with the schedule for development, to determine compliance with the schedule for development, or cause the property to revert to its former zoning classification in the following cases. Case number 1 is rezoning case number 0551. Same thing, and this is on a property that, we're asking to revert to its former RA10 zoning classification. It's Assessor's Parcel 747-45-001, located in the northeast corner of Avenue 3E in County 15.5 Street in Yuma, Arizona. Mr. Rubio.
Thank you, Chairman Reyes. Again, this is a rezoning case number 0551. This is the original map of when the zoning petition first came in. This is the current map. The property has not been developed. It sits in ag. The board has two options. Either the schedule for development would require some improvements to the property. It was never done. It's middle of the tentative plat, never done. The deadline was back in December 5th of 2009. The board has two options: grant an extension to comply with the schedule of development, or revert the zoning to the original RA10 zoning classification. We have contacted the owner. The owner did not respond. However, the owner never intended to develop the property, according to research, and staff is recommending that this case be reverted to the original RA10 zoning classification.
Okay, I'm going to open this to a public hearing unless the board member wants to ask a question from staff. If not, I'll open the public hearing for this item. Is there anybody in the public that wants to address the supervisors on this particular issue? If not, I'll move it back into regular hearing, close the public hearing, move it back into the regular schedule, and ask for the, I'll entertain a motion from the board, members.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, rezoning case number 05-51, I move we revert the zoning.
Second.
Motion second to approve this item as presented, to revert the zoning of this particular rezoning case. Any other discussion? If no discussion, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Question: if reversions hearings all have to be public hearings, they cannot be consent items if nobody has, shown any, it's just a question.
Yeah, it was actually something I was thinking about earlier, and it does have to be a public hearing.
Does? All right, fine. I'll throw it up to a legal opinion, but I don't have time today, so.
You could open them all at once, I think, couldn't you? And ask for a public hearing? Do they have to be one at a time?
Do they have to be one at a time, or can we open them all up together and read the three of them and then open the public hearing for all three of them and then?
I don't know how they would work functionally if they require a public hearing and you open them all at once. I guess you could do that and open the public hearing for all three as well, and the public could come forward and discuss, and as long as they identify which parcel number they're looking for purposes of the minutes.
Yeah. All right,
It makes
well,
sense.
well, again, if there's any issue with that, you can always bring it back to us next time.
No, we want to do it right the first time.
Just kidding.
You want to try it for
Drag
the
us
next
a little.
3? Is that
Yeah,
what
no. What we would like to do is open up the next 3 items for discussion, have the 3 presentations, open up for a public hearing on 3 items and bring it back for a vote individually then.
I'm game for trying it. Just make sure if someone from the public does come forward that they identify the parcel number or
Good.
case number that they're
All right.
discussing.
Reset. We're going to open up rezoning case number 0593, which is the action to grant an extension of time to comply with the schedule for development or cause the property to revert to former rural area 10-acre minimum zoning classification on assessor parcel number 198-18003 located in 40th Street west of Fortuna Road. And I'll also open up rezoning case number 404.
Yeah.
In accordance with section 404-1I-7 of the Yuma County zoning ordinance, action to grant an extension of time to comply with the schedule for development or cause the property to revert to its former rural area 10-acre minimum R10 zoning classification on assessor's parcel number 198-18004, formerly 723-03-005, located on the south side of 40th Street west of Fortuna Road, Yuma, Arizona, and rezoning case number 06-17 in accordance with the same section of the Yuma County zoning ordinance, action to grant an extension of time to comply with the schedule for development or cause the property to revert to the former rural area 10-acre minimum RA10 zoning classification for assessor parcels number 198-18-005, formerly 723-030-003A, located in the south side of 40th Street west of Fortuna Road, Yuma, Arizona. And to explain this to the public, we're going to be opening up these items. We're going to be discussing them individually, open the public hearing for all 3 of them, in which case, if you're here to listen to any of them, be specific about your comments and which zoning case you're referring to, and we will make a decision on an individual basis. Okay? Thank you very much. Mr. Rubio.
Concerning rezoning case 0593, the property currently sits vacant, undeveloped. It did transfer ownership, been in contact with the current owner. The owner supports the reversion to original zoning. He intends to come back at a later date with a different development scheme. Current map.
There's nothing there. Okay.
The schedule for development obviously was not done. And the deadline was back in January 17, 2008. We recommend that the board revert to the original RA10 zoning classification.
Right, good. So the next one is 0404. Ooh, thank you.
Mr. Sherman, Fernando Villegas, senior planner. I'm the case planner for the next 2 rezoning cases. The 3 cases are in the same area, adjacent to each other, different property owners. In my 2 cases, 0404 and 0617, the applicant is requesting a 3-year extension. That's the only difference between Mr. Rubio's presentation and my presentation. And
So
Mr. Gallardo, Mr. Gallardo is representing the owners here to answer any questions.
So just to clear out, the first one was, a different case. And in that one, the reversion supported by the property owner. In the second one here, the owner has requested an extension of 3 years, right?
Correct.
Okay, good. All right. Well, okay, continue.
Do you want me to do the presentation?
We can separate it, I think.
Yeah. Okay, Mr. Sherman, for rezoning case 0404, it was approved by the board in July 6, 2004, subject to the completion of the schedule for development. The property is located south of 40th Street, west of Fortuna Road. The original zoning map shows the zoning RA10, and the current zoning map shows the zoning R16. The property remains vacant, and the schedule for development requires a tentative plat, final plat, and all the requirements by Yuma County to be met. The deadline to comply with the schedule of development was July 6, 2008, and the applicant is requesting a 3-year extension. You have the option to grant an extension or revert the zoning to R810. The staff is recommending to grant the extension of 3 years, and this concludes this presentation for 0404.
Right. Well, now move on to rezoning case 0617.
We don't have a PowerPoint. All right. Rezoning 0617, it's adjacent to the previous case. Same property owner. The same. It was approved by the board in June 19, 2006. The parcel, it's currently zone R16. It's vacant, and the schedule of development requires a study that demonstrates that on-site septic system will be approved. Back then, the applicant was requesting the installation of septic tanks. A tentative plat and a final plat needed to be submitted, and the applicant never met the conditions. The deadline to comply was July 19, 2008. The same property owner is requesting the 3-year extension. Again, you have the option to grant the extension, revert the zoning to R810. Staff is recommending to comply
3 years.
To the 3-year extension, and this concludes the staff presentation.
All right. Question from staff?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. When they develop that property, do they have to follow all the current rules that we have put in place up to this time?
Chairman, yes, the answer is
okay. That's all I
correct.
wanted to make sure.
All right.
Okay.
Sure. Another question from Supervisor McLeod?
I believe these cases predate the lot split.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, 2004, 2006, yes.
Okay.
The rule.
Yeah, lot split rule. What do you call it? You call it lot split?
Land division permit.
Land division permit. Thank you. I'll try to remember that.
Right. I'm going to open the public hearing for all 3 items. The first one, again, the recommendation from staff is to revert, and that, that's on the first one, which is rezoning case number 0593. The other one I'm opening up is rezoning case number 404 and rezoning cases 0616, who are represented by the same owner who has a representative present. Now, I'm opening this up to the public, and if somebody addresses the board, they need to address the board and specifically state which case they're addressing the board on, okay? Now, I remind everybody, this seems to be a pretty smooth going process, and if what's happening is what you want to happen, I caution you not to say something that can derail that. So is there anybody in the public that wants to address the board? Oh, well, there's always one.
Come on.
No, I'm actually being
Board
nice.
members, thank you for having me. An extension, why now? The issue came up. We are aware of the issue. We have developed in Somerton. We're out of lots in Somerton. It is a real possibility that we develop this area. We already have an engineer working on it, and we will be trying to comply with everything that it's mentioned.
Mr. Chairman.
You got to give me your name.
I'm sorry, Celerino Alex Gallardo.
Alex Gallardo. Okay.
And the case number.
And the case numbers are
0404.
Thank you.
and 0617?
Yes.
Right. Just want to make sure. Those are the two you're representing, and you're in concurrence with the staff recommendation to give you a 3-year extension. Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else? No? I'll close the public hearing on these 3 items and return it back to the board for their decision. I'll take item number, the first one, which is rezoning case 0593. The staff recommendation is to revert to the original zoning. Is there a motion to that effect?
I'll make a motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
The motion and second to revert case number 0593 as per planning zoning recommendation. Any discussion on the item? No discussion. All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Next item is our rezoning cases number 0404. I'll take that one individually. Rezoning case number 0404. The staff recommends a 3-year extension. Do I hear a motion to that effect?
No, discussion, please.
Discussion. Well, no motion, discussion first.
Yeah, see, if we grant the extension, we're not doing what it is the board's trying to do here, okay? So here's what I would like to ask. What prevents us from reverting it today and having staff bring it back to us at an appropriate time in the very near future to go back to what it is, the zoning that we approved at that time? By doing so, it now puts it under the land division permit, which accomplishes what started this whole look, right?
Can we do that?
Well, look, guys, I don't think you understand the complexity of bringing it back and get it,
That's what we're
done
gonna
again.
find out.
It's
Without
time
any
consuming.
cost.
Maggie Castro, Planning and Zoning
You have
Director.
to notify.
If the zoning is reverted, the only way to bring it back for consideration of a zone change to R16 is through an application process. It would have to go back to the Planning and Zoning Commission and Board of Supervisors at the request of either the property owner or an agent. The original intent of rezoning these properties to R16 was to develop a subdivision consisting of approximately 20 lots each?
33 each parcel.
33 lots for each parcel. Originally, the 3 parcels that are under consideration today were going to be 3 separate phases of the same subdivision, with one dropping out today because the board took action to revert the zoning. Then it would only be the 2 properties under rezoning case 0404 and 0617 that would be subject to being developed as a subdivision.
And let me add, I don't know, I mean, I know I know that Supervisor McLeod knows how complex it is to get this situation processed, time consuming also. And it takes 3 to 6 months, I would say, on the fast track situation, if everything went according to, I think according to the process. If a developer is ready to do something with it and is willing to meet all this schedule for development, I think that the issue of the lot splits or division of land, it's pretty much moot to me, unless, something happened. And I think we have already let the staff know that, we would like you to keep an eye out for those type of things. But this is a subdivision. You wouldn't be splitting it. It's an R16. It's not like a parcel that you're going to split into 4 or you split into 2 and sell off 1. This is designed R1. The R16 designation tells me that they can't do a lot split with an R16 and split 1 lot or 2 lots or 3 lots. I mean, it's just not logical. So I don't see much purpose in redoing it to achieve the fact that we want them to develop it. I think that if they're ready to develop it and they're willing to do it and meet all the new rules and regulations, I think we just have to make the path easier for them, not tougher for them.
Mr. Chairman, I agree.
There you go. Finally, Megan, I agree on something.
I always listen to Matt.
Yeah, well, good. All right, so is there a motion to grant extension?
I'll make the motion. Do you want to do it separately or just together?
Yeah, we got to do one at a time.
I'll
So
make the
rezoning
motion
case 0404.
that we go with
Staff
Planning
recommend-
and Zoning's recommendation of a 3-year extension.
But this is staff recommendation, isn't it?
Or
Because
staff
planning and zoning
recommendation.
doesn't go through it.
Excuse me,
All right.
staff recommendation.
Is there a second?
Second. Oh, good.
There's been a motion and
Russell.
second to approve rezoning case number 0404 based on staff recommendation. All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Next item is rezoning case number 0617, which is basically the same issue, the same item. Do I hear a motion to approve as presented?
So moved. Oh, it's your discussion.
No, go ahead.
It's okay. It's okay, it's fine.
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
There's been a motion and second to approve item as presented based on staff recommendation, which is to extend a 3-year extension of time to comply with schedule for development. Any discussion on the item? No discussion on the item. All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
All those against? Motion carries. So that takes care of all the items under the rezoning calendar. The next item is event calendar of current events, and I will open up
Thank you.
by beginning
you.
at the right side. We
Yes, sir.
think that Supervisor Pancrase might have slowed down a little bit because she's got some surgery, but
Yeah,
who
it's
knows?
been
Who
a tough
knows?
3 weeks, yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah, it's been a little, tough 3 weeks. I did attend the rodeo parade. I attended the Board of Supervisors retreat. I did several teleconferences and one regarding water that we're really looking at. A couple of bills at the legislature that would give the CAP, CAGRD sovereign immunity over the Colorado River, and which would really hurt our standing as far as senior rights on the Colorado. So we're keeping a very close eye on that. And I attended the ADEQ air quality stakeholder meeting yesterday, and I'm back in the swing.
Back in the swing of things.
Yes, I am. Yes.
Uh-oh.
Sling it all.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Supervisor McLeod?
Yeah, I stopped by the State Transportation Board meeting and just greeted the board members and thanked them for coming to Yuma. Wasn't able to stay, but I did want to go by and let them know that they were appreciated for coming by. Attended the County Supervisors Association meeting in Phoenix last week. Also, of course, the board's work session retreat. Attended the Chamber Legislative Affairs. Also Legislative Policy Committee a couple of weeks ago, and several other little meetings in between.
Supervisor Simmons.
Public community meeting out in the foothills, reference to this ongoing smell that seems to emanate from out there. We had a very good turnout. We had approximately 350 to 400 people.
Whoa.
Show up for the meeting. ADEQ was there. Craig was there from Developmental Services, as well as Diana from Health Department. Hopefully we've got the ball rolling on trying to fix this issue. It's been going on for years and it needs to come to an end. Also attended the governor's breakfast, had attended at the Hank Days parade, the work session as well, had a Mesa del Sol homeowners meeting that we attended. Ag Council meeting was also attended, but that's going on hiatus, I think, till September for now. And then I was asked to be a speaker at assembly at Antelope Union High School yesterday, reference to the school shooting in Florida. My years out there is my other occupation, and I've got a very good rapport with the kids and the faculty, so they asked if I would come and speak at a school assembly reference to that issue, as well as one of the other officers that lives in that area attended as well.
Well, I'll start with my biggest regret, which was not attending the Silver Spur Rodeo now that you guys got up in the front. Yeah. This was a very disappointing situation for me. I've been waiting for that for a long time, and sorry that I missed it. There was a lot of activity out in the district. I mean, actually, we did a lot of work with the Greater Yuma Port Authority, the Sioux City. We had interviews. We had, in the city of San Luis, there was a lot of activity going on the past month regarding the new port of entry, the redesign of the new port of entry. You know, a lot of us attended that, and that would be it in general. I mean, I know I would, you know, if I sit around, I'll remember more things, but that's not the point here. So, Susan, you're next.
Yes, thank you very much. I am happy that I made a phone call to the sheriff, and he must have made it happen that you guys didn't have to follow the horses. That was good.
Yes.
I attended the Governor's State of the State breakfast. That was good, and also got a chance to check in with our newest representative, Mr. Dunn, and he's in a whirlwind of activity at the state legislature, and he's doing well, but very, very busy these days. I also yesterday attended the Chamber of Commerce board meeting that they have once a month, and so I'll be going to those every month to give them a little update on county issues. The city has been doing that, and now that the county is a member, they've invited us to be part of that process as well. So I look forward to doing that. And that concludes my report.
All right, that was pretty good. Is there anything that's left to be said or done that cannot be covered in another meeting?
Yeah, one thing is, the board would like to extend our condolences to you, Mr. Headington, for your loss. Yeah. We're sorry. We know it's a tough time. Thank you.
It is.
All right. There being no more items or, you know, items for the board to discuss, this is, you know, I hereby close this meeting till the next time. And remember, next time, some of us will be in Washington, D.C., so